The following is a translucid conversation with Tyler Hansen. Hey, Tyler, how are you?
I'm doing great, my friend. Like I was just telling you, I appreciate you having me on. It's been a minute since I've been on a podcast, so I'm looking forward to our chat.
This is awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. This is our first time actually having a conversation face to face. We talked a little bit on Instagram. I follow your page. Can you do one of your spiels about it for entertainment only before we even get started?
What do you mean? Just explain why I do it?
No, the actual thing. So we don't get this is only going to be on Twitter, but.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, of course, everything that we are about to talk about is for entertainment purposes only, and you should not take anything seriously because I'm just a satirical humor guy and here to entertain with open-minded satirical humor.
Yeah, and same, I just try to have translucid conversations, kind of a soul-to-soul conversation. And in this particular case, you really interest me. You intrigue me because of your very direct approach to things. And I mean, you lack zero fear. And I love the authenticity. What really got me, funny enough, out of all your videos is the one of the cloud. When you saw your dog in the cloud, and just for that split second. Maybe let's just start with that, because I see things like that all the time, and that to me said, okay, you got the eye. I don't claim to have it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a great spot to start because I attribute a lot of my awakening to that dog that I saw in the clouds. I don't have any kids. I'm 44 years old now, and 2 years ago, as a 42-year-old dog dad, I had 4 dogs, and one of them was, and like these dogs are my kids, not having kids. Like I just love the ground these dogs work on or walk on. And my dog was 15 and a half years old and his legs were just starting to fail him. And at that point in life, I was someone that didn't really have any sort of belief in spirituality at all. I just thought I was kind of here on accident. I was spinning on a ball in an infinite galaxy with infinite planets. And as I was really starting to know that my dog's life was coming to an end, I think it kind of started me down a path of searching if there was more to this whole existence than just the physical. And, I started watching near-death experiences. I started researching aliens and things like that. But, and there's a lot more to it, but I think that's really what started to kind of unwind my mind a little bit, was just seeking if there was more to this place because of losing my dog. And then, fast forward 2 years, I've gone through this huge spiritual awakening. I've experienced so many supernatural phenomenon that I, couldn't even probably try to get to them all in the 3-hour conversation. Yep. But I was at this point where I was super awake. I knew I lived in a spiritual realm, and I was embarking on a few-day fast, and probably 30 to 40 hours into that fast, I was in my backyard, and I looked at the sky, I looked at the heavens, and I asked God. I just said, I said, God, if my dog is being taken care of, if there is an afterlife for dogs and their souls, just a sign would be awesome. And I fasted throughout that day into the next day, and my wife and I went to the beach, and I had my, I looked at the sun, and there was the most beautiful sunset. I live close to the Gulf Coast on Florida, and there were these rays coming off the sun, and I was like, oh, these are beautiful rays. They prove that there's a local sun. They're called crepuscular rays. So I wanted to zoom in on them with my camera. So as I zoom in, almost immediately as I get closer to these clouds and these rays and the sun, I just see a perfect image in the clouds of my dog. And it's like, it's not like one of those where like, look, that looks like a dog with a puffy tail, or like where it's pareidolia and you can make things out. Like, this was an identical face of my dog, and I captured it and I showed my wife, and she was even like, that's Tillman. And then you know, like, I was just like, that's it. Like, there was no doubt in my mind that was my sign from God that I had asked for less than 24 hours earlier. And the even like, to add to that craziness is that a few hours later, I looked at my phone and I was like, oh, I know I have a picture of my dog that looks exactly like the image that was in the clouds. And I pulled out my phone, and my phone's background was that picture. It was like, what? Like, I hadn't had my dog as my background on my phone for months and months and months.
It was just rotating on its own.
No. I didn't have a rotating thing whatsoever.
Oh.
It was just one. It was one picture on. I had my niece. My niece was on my phone background for months. Just one picture. There was no rotating, and I grabbed my phone and I looked at my phone. I looked at my phone, and it was literally the picture I was looking for, that I was going to go into my phone to look for, was there. And I was like, it mind blew me, but at the same time, I just within those few weeks, I had really made the realization that God communicates with us through electronics. And I know that might sound crazy to people, but like, I've had so many times that the TV has like given me clues to videos I'm researching and things like that. So it was just like I literally think God like put that picture on my phone for me the same day I saw it. So it was literally a miracle, a literal miracle. And it was so cool. And it's so cool that you saw that and appreciated it. I'm sure some people saw that video and it was like, okay, he drew this dog in the, like CGI.
Some people, like, it doesn't matter. You could show it to them. You could put it right in front of them. If they're not ready to see it, I'm at the point where I'm like, everybody has a different journey. Yeah. And for whatever reason, they can't even see it. When you talk about crepuscular rays, it's like every child draws crepuscular rays, right? So children,
you got them right here on your background.
Yeah. No, I specifically put them here, right? As part of, and part of this background is because I try to have a translucid conversation. It's more like, I'm not even here. This is just my avatar. This is my body and my mind. But really, it's like I'm trying to have a soul-to-soul conversation. So when you're doing that, and by the way, all these things you talk about, I'm just going to put in the thread on Twitter below. So I'll actually put your dog up so people can see it for themselves and they can judge it for themselves. But everything you talk about, I'll kind of put on here. It's really, I've had this happen to me many times in life and I couldn't explain it. But I do agree with you that things tend to align. And the best way I can explain it is it's almost like life is a game of chess. Every action has consequences and you almost have to think 12 steps ahead. And I have a tattoo specifically to this, but I actually see it as Tetris, where these pieces are just coming and they get faster and faster the busier you are. But if you can really have clarity and understand who you are and what you're about and where you are, everything just slows down and these pieces start coming really slowly and you don't even have to put them anywhere. And so like, I think that was just a piece that you got to see, if I can use an analogy, in the sky that gave you the validation that you needed in a fasted state. Now I'm fasted right now. The most I've done is 48 hours. And, but it makes a lot of sense to me when I really thought about it. Even the story they tell us about cavemen and all this BS, people can go down that rabbit hole, but it wouldn't make sense that you would get weaker when you don't eat. It would make sense that your senses are heightened if you're hunting for food. So, so I think there's a lot to it. There's just no money in it. And that's why.
Yeah. It's funny. Are you familiar with the show Seinfeld?
Yeah.
So when my wife and I were sick in my in-laws' basement, we just were like, we were too sick to even pay attention, but like we'd throw something on the TV just like in our dazed, confused, trying to sleep off this thing state. And it was Seinfeld. We just were like, had reruns on something we didn't care to pay attention to. But at one point there was an episode where Elaine has to fast for 3 days. And they make it seem like the hardest, most difficult thing, and they make her seem like she's going crazy and she's weak and she's starving and like losing her mind. And I'm like, looking at that now, I'm like, that is so intentional to scare people away from fasting, because that's all the TV is mind control. And it was literal mind control to people, for people subconsciously to be like, nope, I saw Elaine fast. I don't ever want to feel like that, and it's the opposite. I feel the absolute best at the end of my fasts all the time.
So you don't ever have problems with low blood sugar?
No, I don't. No, I really don't. But you know what? I've been fasting for 10 or 15 years, and I started just doing like 16-hour fast on the weekends. Then it turned into 16-hour fast every day. Then it moved to like 20-hour fast every day. So like I have built such a tolerance to it. I think the low blood sugar thing probably happens when people just haven't become accustomed 100%. To it and used to it. So
I was literally like joking, tongue in cheek, because they tell us 6 meals a day and snacks and all this BS. I mean, I'm 45, right? We didn't even have snacks when I was growing up. We had 3 meals a day, and that's it. And if you didn't eat, you're not eating till the next meal. I guess it wasn't until we moved to Canada that my parents kind of overcompensated, because I was born in Romania. Like there, we definitely didn't have snacks. But yeah, there's a really good book. I'll pop it in here. It's called The Obesity Code. Dr. Fung, he's here in Toronto, and he wrote about the misconception and how good fasting actually is in terms of your insulin spikes. It reduces the insulin spikes, especially if you can keep it to like a short window. And yeah, to me, it's been amazing. And it's also a lazy man's diet. Like, right? It's really easy. I only have to plan like 1 meal a day, and I can look forward to it all day.
1,000%. And it's funny you said that. I don't know. You said you were in my live the other day, and maybe I wasn't talking about this one. Maybe I was, but like as someone who I've been in the fitness and health and nutrition industry for the past, really the past 30 years, at least on an interest level, but it was my profession as a physical education teacher. And there's so much talk about keep the metabolism running. You got to eat every couple hours. And looking back on that now, that's again just propaganda to make sure you never get to a fasted state, make sure you are spending all this money. Like, it's so funny to look back on now with an awake mind at some of the things that I didn't understand previously that makes so much sense now.
And if you look back, breakfast is literally break fast, and it was created to sell more meat by the meat industry. And then also, if you look into Kellogg's, why he first brought Kellogg's cereal was to stop masturbation among young men. I don't know if you went down that rabbit hole.
No, I've never seen that.
Yeah. So, it's an interesting, like everything with a grain of salt, but you're just like, when you see the mass level narcissism, psychopathy, sociopathic controls, and you step away from it, you always ask the question, why? Like, why would they do that? And that's the first question anytime I talk about this stuff. And people don't want to talk about it. So I just kind of stick to, spaces or kind of like-minded people that see it, because it's crazy talk for, all intents and purposes. If you're not ready to see it, you don't see it. And people don't, it's almost like their reality will break, and they don't want to accept the fact that they've been lied to since day one, down to the shape of the earth. And look, I'm not saying definitively it's this or that, because I honestly don't know. But what I do know is we've been lied to, and it's not a space rock with water on it, and it's spinning at 666 miles, and all this, satanic stuff that they put in there in terms of the math. It just doesn't even make sense for so many reasons, and people can go down, that rabbit hole themselves. But to me, it doesn't even matter what the shape is. It's more so, what does this mean? Because if I know where I am, then I can start to figure out who I am and what I am beyond this body, this mind. And if anybody is spiritual, or even if you're reading like Eckhart Tolle, the thinker behind the thought, right? So some will call that the spirit, the soul. Once you can tap into that, I think that's when alignment comes, where you start seeing these things and those pieces go, really slowly. I saw your one in particular when you realized about Prince, and you saw
Mhm.
purple on your TV.
Yeah, I was I had never, sometimes I just very organically come across these things, or I'll see something on TV, and I've always had really good facial recognition. And someone asked me, I don't know if it was a follower or a subscriber, but someone said, "Have you ever looked into Prince?" And I was like, "No, you know what? I never have." So I just looked up Prince on YouTube. I was never a Prince fan. I've never really, seen too many things. I'm obviously familiar with Prince, but it was just like always in passing. And I looked up a YouTube, and immediately when I saw him speaking, I was like, I know that voice, I know that face, I know those mannerisms. I'm like, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? And it hit me like from the time someone asked me if I could find him to not more than a minute later, I knew that Prince in some way, shape, or form was also David Blaine. And then I'm going to look for, David Blaine things. And as I'm looking, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I had, I've had these. I think I was telling the story about how, or I was looking and waiting for a sign because the TV has been very strange with me lately. And as I was like really trying to see, is this him for sure? I have a fireplace that kind of shifts through colors. And like,
Yes.
as I was typing it to someone or saying it to someone, I was like, I'm pretty sure, but I haven't gotten my sign yet. Like, I looked and my fireplace was purple, and I was like, there it is.
So, question for you, Tyler. Do you
Yeah.
believe this is God working through electronics, or do you think this is God working through guardian angels?
I've gone back and forth. I've thought God, I've thought my higher self, I've thought angels. I don't think I will ever know for sure until I leave this body, but I tend to think it's God. But maybe that's I don't know. Like I tried to. It's a great question, and I don't know, but
Okay.
most of the time I lean towards God, just because
Eh,
I
eh,
think. Go ahead.
no, no, no. Finish that thought. Just because you
I was
think.
going to say just because I used to think, I used to not have this thought that God could, I thought he could just control the spiritual, and there was like spiritual manipulation, but I was like, he can literally, from my perspective, God can control anything. Of course, if he can control the spiritual, he can get in and like control electronics, and there's just a timing of everything. So I tend to lean towards God, but that doesn't mean I don't give a percentage to my higher self or
Perfect.
other spiritual beings or angels.
Got it. And I love the fact that you say I don't know, because I think that is the most honest and authentic answer anybody can give, because I, even we use, they say up to 10% of our brain, and our brain is not at all what, you know, it was symbolized as like a computer.
Yeah.
In my understanding, and again, I don't know, it's more like an antenna. And I really don't know. And I don't care to say this is what it is, because I am very comfortable in the not knowing, in sitting in that. And every day my mind is blown by many miracles that happen. I've come kind of to the understanding, like you, about the higher self. I have a feeling that the feel that we give off and the reality that we create ourselves, and I think through our hearts more so than our minds. I think the mind deceives us a lot. Um, I believe that it actually shapes not only our reality, but all the other realities that we come across. That's why we repel certain people, and they just like scatter or ghost. And then together, we're actually creating a collective reality. And I always come back to the why. Why the deception? Why the trillions of dollars to deceive, like these people, if they're meaningless, if they're specks of dust, if they came from an ape, and they're just here to survive. It always comes back to the same thing. Because we're a lot more special than we realize. we have a lot more power than we realize. And I have a hunch, and again, this is just my hypothesis, that the controllers, if you want to call them that, that created, you know, for lack of a better term, matrix, because I think most people that resonates with, can't create. They can only control, and they need humanity to create the collective consciousness. And one of the best ways to do that is through guilt, anxiety, shame, and especially fear, things that bring people into a much lower vibrational frequency. That's why I'm really interested in what you're talking about specifically when it comes to Hollywood and the deception. One of the major ones that got me, because I'm a big Brad Pitt fan in terms of, at least, so here's the thing. I'm still, and I want to really ponder this with you. I really like his movies, and I like the message. If I think about movies like Fight Club, if I think about like one of my favorite war movies, Fury, obviously it pushes war. But he's done like Seven is one of my absolute favorite movies when it talks about the 7 deadly sins, right?
Mine too. Love that movie.
So I try to look beyond the messenger and the message itself. So both him and Morgan Freeman were in there, and you did something. So first of all, Brad Pitt, Benicio del Toro, I'll pop it in here with your insight. Morgan Freeman is Jimi Hendrix. I'll pop it in here. Also left-handed. Jimi Hendrix used to play the guitar upside down. And I don't know, Morgan Freeman always had this cool ease about him, and I could never place it. But I try to look at the content itself. So I 100% agree. I mean, we're being deceived. And if they can deceive us on that level, then they can deceive us about pretty much anything, at least most. But where I'm still not sure is, and I know you pick up on hand symbols, right? And some are obviously in the club. But where I'm not sure is the message itself. Because if I just look at the message, I think about Morgan Freeman's movies, a lot of them were positive. As far as like even 51% positive, right? In terms of the message. Same with Brad Pitt, same with Jim Carrey, same with Keanu. Like, in fact, a lot of these movies, like, Jim Carrey, Truman Show, or Keanu Reeves, The Matrix, like those were the ones that kind of awakened me, but then I denied it, right? And it wasn't until right now, until like probably end of September, October, where I fully awakened, and I'm like, and just by simple math, some of the stuff, you have a really good 30-minute video on it. I'm going to pop it in here, like a 7-part series. I think anybody who's just curious, again, just for entertainment only, go take a look and start asking questions. But I wonder, like, do you think there's a chance that we could have both dark angels and light angels in that space deceiving? So some for the better and some for the worse?
It's a really good question. And before I answer that real quick, I just want to, you had mentioned, something you kind of resonate with me is my ability to say, I don't know. And like, I try to, like, something that has always just stuck with me, and I've always tried to be myself and pass on to athletes I've worked with, is humility. Yep. And I have absolutely no problem when I'm wrong, saying I'm wrong. And I have absolutely no problem saying I don't know. And I think, a lot of times I post things and I do speculate, but I don't ever try to speculate without some research-backed evidence. And there are sometimes I present something and I'm not 100% sure, but then there are other times where I'm like Brad Pitt and Benicio del Toro, like I am very certain on that is that Brad Pitt at some point, maybe not all the time, but Brad Pitt is the role of Benicio del Toro. I mean, the specific birthmarks and moles and things I have found, it is just too coincidental and too, like, the astronomical odds of them have me thinking that they're the same people by looks, and then finding the same mannerisms, and then finding the clues of Angelina Jolie giving Benicio del Toro the Oscar.
Yep.
And then then finding the birthmarks that are perfect and match so like some things I do know, and I don't say that with arrogance. I do think some of the videos I post, I do know, though. I do think I know that Elvis is Trump, and that can sound crazy to people, but
Yep.
so I just wanted to touch on that real quick. And I have a buddy, Brian, who I have met through the internet world, and he definitely at one point posed those exact same questions to me, thinking that, I think it was when I was doing videos on Gary Busey and Tom Brady, and he was
Yep.
very much of that mindset that Tom Brady might be an angelic being, but maybe one for, like the good side. And I don't know, even though I do see what you're saying with the message behind some of these movies, and the overall production of what some of these people are putting out there can be, even if it's just 51%, still a positive message. To me, from my perspective, and what resonates with me, is truth is on the side of good. And if they're lying to us and they're deceiving us and there's intention behind their deception, I don't know if I would consider that light angels. I just think, and they all seem to, whether they're producing good or bad things, they all seem to be interwoven. And
Yeah.
I do think it's just all fallen in nature angels that are the ones controlling things behind the scenes. And that's just my take.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think I have maybe max 3% understanding of the Bible. It's very basic, right? But I do somehow believe that there are not only, the fallen angels, not only the ones that want to do harm, but the ones that want to help. And the only reason why I say this is because I feel like I've gotten help throughout my life. And I can't explain it. And there are certain celebrities that I've gravitated towards, and movies that have been, like, it's funny, like, I'm a big movie buff, but some movies I can't even like recite a line from. It just doesn't resonate at all. And then there's other ones that I know off by heart. And I can't help but think that, there's something greater at work there. Now, I agree with you, deception is deception. And at what point, if somebody lies to you, at what point do you, say, okay, that's enough lies? Is it 2? Is it 3? Right.
Right.
But I also see, like, the nature of people's reality, where you literally try to tell them like things for their own good, even just health advice, and they refuse to see it, because they are in their journey. So I wonder if there's an element of us being positively influenced until we're ready to see it, almost like and I don't know, again, I have no idea. I think that's the only place where I struggle with some of the videos, because I'm like, that's really cool, but then I try to figure out, well, what does it mean? I try not to go, and this is part of, so again, I mentioned narcissist, sociopaths in the past, and I don't know if you have any experience with that, but like,
Oh yeah.
once you awaken to that, right, and you realize you've been played, right, and I know the first thing to me is, when I came out of it, I was like the kid in the movie where he's like, I see dead people. I was like, I see narcissists. Like, everybody was a narcissist. And I saw, like, because I would see narcissistic qualities in everybody, because, that's all I was. And there's this book about it, which is really good. It's called Psychopath Free, where this guy, like, feels like it's almost like we have to fight. There are these people, and we have to expose them. And funny enough, he wrote another book afterwards, once he healed more. It was called Whole Again, where he said, look, like, the reality is, yes, these people exist, but the reason you let them deceive you in the first place is because there was a hole inside of you, and you allowed, it's almost like letting in that vampire when you let him into the house, right? But once you realize there's vampires, and you're not going to let them in your house, and the temple that is, our body and our, our mind and our soul, that's when you have a lot more power. So what I worry about, and I think about this daily, is because I think the greatest trick the devil ever played is convincing mankind that he doesn't exist. So what I worry about is, does he deceive us in way more ways than we realize? And how do I ensure that I'm not deceived? How do I ensure that the signs that I see, like for me, for example, my lucky number is 3, but I'm Laszlo the third. My grandfather was named Laszlo. My dad's named Laszlo. So I was the third by accident because my mom thought I was going to be a girl. So they didn't even have a name. And they said, fine, there'll be a Laszlo. And for some reason, I always see that number, right? Now, I know for certain I'm not a Freemason. I understand way too much about it, and I realize people worship the wrong God and they get all sorts of fame and fortune and all that. But I see that number constantly, all the time. And it's almost like, to me, it's a positive association to it, to the point where I actually tattooed it on my wrist, the time 3:33, because to me, I would constantly catch that time of the day, or sometimes I wake up at night and it's 3:33. And I can't help but think that, to me, it's I took that number for myself before I even learned about this, 33, and what they did during COVID with 33 cases and this and that. And
Right.
just yesterday there was 66 deaths in Turkey. It's disgusting, right? But I'm like, no, like, they're not taking that number from me. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, is there a level of deception there? And I wonder, do you have this insight? Like, do you think about this often, that, like, there's a saying that I think Tyson put it best, the person that brings you to the prom, when God favors you, the devil also favors you, and will try to deceive you, especially once you have prominence and you have a lot of influence. So do you ever think about that maybe that might be a possibility?
Yeah, and it's I just had someone text me or DM me the other day, and it's a very similar story to yours. Her name is Christine. I think she is like one of 3 sisters, and she loves the number 3, and 33 is like her angel number. I honestly am very similar. I'm the oldest of 3 brothers. 3 was always my favorite number. And I didn't give you this email because I don't like to give it out, but my main email is Tyler Hansen 33, but that's been my email for 20 years. It's been my email. It was my first ever email. I tried Tyler Hansen at yahoo.com. That didn't work. Tried Tyler Hansen 3 at yahoo.com because 3 is always my favorite because I'm one of 3 brothers, the oldest, and that was taken. So I did Tyler Hansen 33 at yahoo.com, and that was available. So that's been my email my whole life, and literally probably 22 or 23 years before I even heard of what a Freemason.
Yeah.
So I get, when people find out my email, I'm like, great, now I got to explain this. So yeah, like, I am right there with you. And something else, like, sometimes I had this wild experience where I had this argument with my wife, and this was like when I was first waking up, and I went on a long bike ride. I was praying about it, and I ran into this guy that was walking to Florida, and I was in Illinois, and we had this amazing, like, I only would have, in my 30-mile bike ride, I only would have caught him in this 10-mile stretch. Otherwise, we'd never, or 10-foot stretch. We just happened to pass, and like, it was just this amazing connection. But like, I'm like, that was an angel. But then, and like, he gave me this advice. He gave me this advice, and I'm like, that was an angel. But I was like, or was that advice, like, is that deceiving advice? And that wasn't an angel. Maybe that was a dark angel, and I'm taking it the wrong way. So like, oh yeah, I absolutely think, like, there's 2 sides. There's light and dark, definitely fighting against each other. And like you said, I think since I have woken up, and since I do have a strong voice and a lot of followers, and I'm not afraid, and I'm exposing a lot of truth, I do think I get a lot of spiritual attacks. I think I do have the Freemasons. I think I am on their list. I think I'm on a lot of lists. And I've even created content where, mainstream media has created exact counter information and put it out like within hours of me creating a post. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah,
No, no,
like
no, no,
exactly
no, no.
what
You
you're
told me.
saying, I think about a lot.
Okay, and that's like, it totally resonates with me, everything you're saying. And it's funny because the normies may be like, dude, the world doesn't revolve around you, Tyler. Like, you think your content is that profound? And it's like, well, I personally think so. There's this theory, right? I don't even know if this was science or pseudoscience, but I've seen it in my life where, so they're talking about like apes that were on one island started using sticks to get ants out of holes. And then all of a sudden on a completely different island, apes were doing that as well, or monkeys, or some sort of, and it's like, so when something's figured out somewhere else it is. And it usually happen with inventions too throughout the world. If you look back at patents when they're filed and things like that. Now there's a lot of, deception and copying, but I can't help but think that as a certain percentage or even a few awaken, others awaken to the same thing, because it somehow becomes in the realm of possibility. It's just like, I mean, you're an athlete, right? So it's like the 4-minute mile. As soon as one person broke it, all of a sudden a bunch started breaking it, because now it was in the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, I was distracted by some of your hand symbols. I can't help that. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, call it out. Call it out.
This one. This hand.
Yeah, my
this,
face
this
was, my face was itchy.
that hand symbol got me a few times. I'm not gonna lie, my friend.
You know what? I'm gonna try to mess with you specifically.
Well, you threw me off a little there. I'm not gonna lie, I lost my concentration.
But I'm really glad that you're bringing it out, because I do talk like this a lot. I saw right now, like, Trump Jr. is doing this.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the hand gestures a little bit, like, because some people go like this. I agree.
Yeah, this
is not how you do. This is not how you would do a 3. I agree with that.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't think. I think especially when it's over the eye, it's very intentional.
And this I don't even do this for 3. I go like this for 3.
That's sign language 3. I know that.
Yeah.
I think.
But I'm really glad you bring it up, because to me, again, I'm not even camera facing. I just started doing this stuff. Like, I guess this would be episode 7. So I just like, I talk freely.
Well, now you got me thrown off here, because you got the 333 tattoo.
I know.
You're doing the pyramid. You're wearing the Adidas. I feel like I'm set up here. I don't know.
No, I promise you, I'm not. But again, you don't know me from a hole in the wall, because we just met right now, right?
All right, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Tyler, I'd rather you actually sit in the discomfort of the trigger, because that's my whole point of wanting to get to know you, right?
Yeah.
Is because, so here's the problem as I see it, and they say this with people, like, with great intelligence comes like some of the hardest lives, because when people see things for the way they are, it's very hard to be positive. Right? Because you're like, you see the deception everywhere. So what I try to do right now, and I know even like when I talk to my fiance about it or anybody else, it's like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? You're stressing me out. And because I realize the way I portray it, like, what I'm talking about is there's deception everywhere. And that's all they hear, but they don't hear the why. And I'm like, no, what I'm trying to say is, take care of yourself, take care of your body, take care of your mind, because from a place of clarity, you have a lot more power than you realize. And if you just sit in clarity and figure out exactly what you want, you can manifest this, pray and all that stuff.
And let me just interject. My wife is the same way. Like, she doesn't want to hear a lot of the things I talk about, because from her perception, it's all evil, it's all lies, it's all negative. And I think I have, like, from I don't have a better way to explain this, but I think I have a superpower of being able to dive down deep into the darkness, and I come out and I'm fine. Like, I can dig in the dark rabbit holes and I find the information and I want to expose it. But like, most often, and I can't say I'm never impacted, but most often it doesn't impact my energy. It doesn't, like, I stay positive in the darkness, and I don't think she has the ability to do that. So, and like, nothing against her. But But because she doesn't have that ability, that talking about lies, talking about deception, talking about evil will pull her down there, where
Yeah.
I'm just talking about it and it's around me, but it's not pulling me down. So I think I have a unique ability to dive into the deception and the lies and the darkness and come out like clean still.
I have a personal question for you, and feel free to, not answer this if you don't want to.
Said
But
I'm an open book. I got nothing to hide.
okay, so you are the oldest of three boys, you said.
Yep.
Would you say that you saw a lot more darkness in your childhood than the average child?
I would say than the average child in my bubbled community. I came from a very well-off, affluent suburb of Chicago, where every single one of my friends had their own car in high school. Like I didn't.
Yeah.
Every single one of my friends' parents were together. My parents were divorced. I helped raise my younger brothers, basically. So like I had a very different childhood than most of my friends, than most of the people in that area. I wouldn't, like I had a very good childhood. I just, I had a dad that wasn't really present, and that I'm sure caused some, some trust issues and abandonment issues and things like that. But I wouldn't say it was dark by any means. I enjoyed very much being like a father figure for my little brothers.
Yep.
So I wouldn't say so, but a lot of people do say that. A lot of people say people who are more perceptive and aware of things have gone through darker times. But like, I mean, like I did have points where like my entire friend group abandoned me. So there was like tough times, but I wouldn't call them dark. And I think if I didn't have the mother that I did, who always tried to teach me a lesson and don't treat people the way you're being treated and things like that, it could have been a very different, dark childhood. But, thank God for my mom. I learned things from the darkness instead of getting stuck in them.
Also, thank God for you, because the exact same person could go through that and go the other way. I've noticed this in my experience. How old were you when your dad kind of went out of the picture?
Man, probably. I mean, my parents didn't get divorced till I was a freshman in high school, but like they were separated for years. I was probably 9 or 10.
Okay.
Like I remember my middle school years, my friends always been like, "Where's your dad?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
Not here.
That's tough, especially when you're the oldest and you don't even have an older brother. I had an older brother. My father left at 5. Now he left. He left Romania. He fled to Austria because back then it was communist. So to make a better life for us, and then to Canada. We didn't see him for 2 years. So I remember at 5 years old, my mom telling me, and my grandma, his mother, is freaking out, crying, and she's telling me, "No, it's fine. He's making he's going to find a better." He didn't even say bye. To me, as a 5-year-old, I couldn't process it. Like that side of the brain, you only think, well, one side. So I thought I had a great childhood, but I realized that I had all these like abandonment issues throughout life, which in essence, well, first of all, growing up in, and I won't say chaos, but it is, when you have parents that are very stressed, they're occupied. I had an older brother. I don't know how you were with your brothers, but my older brother, he's 7 feet tall. So like he was constantly like, I'm pretty big myself, but like I'm constantly fighting him. And he knows exactly to this day how to push my button. So I didn't exactly feel safe. I probably didn't feel safe until I was 26.
Yeah.
Until I was like, okay. And I guess my brain fully developed, and I was like, I'm massive. I had a couple of fights. I can't fight, but have you ever been punched in the face?
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting what happens?
Yeah,
Right?
I just have a trigger, man. Like
Right.
like
I think everybody should get punched in the face.
Fight or flight, right? It's
Yeah,
like you
because once you get punched in the face, you get mad, right? And then you handle, and you're like, what the hell am I afraid of? I've been fighting this monster all my life. But I had this like inner, like, I don't know, this like, I don't know what. I was afraid of the dark. I was afraid of a bunch of stuff, but also I was very attuned to things. And I think it had to do with like safety. And you find a way to, when you're looking at other people's emotions and are they in a good mood, and it's almost like you got to be a chameleon to them, and it created this codependency in me that I had to later on look at, even though I thought I had a wonderful childhood. Again, I was playing outside barefoot, creating slingshots, like, but at the same time, there was this lack and this fear. And it wasn't until I had this dream, and I want to talk about some of your experiences too. I had this dream where I came out of my parents' balcony. Sorry, they have like a back porch, and I came down and I looked left to the barbecue, and there was this darkness there. I don't know what it was, but I was scared of it, and I was just pissed. I was like, I'm sick of being scared, and I ran right for it. Like, I didn't know what it was, but I said, like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna smash it. And then I woke up, and it's like since then, it all kind of dissipated. And then I've gone through the journey. Like, later on, I can just DM you my first episode with Dr. Andrea Orta. She's a naturopathic doctor, and she does like deep inner heart work, and she helps to explore that. Like, she'll take you back as a child and explore things that you didn't even, like, you have these memories, you don't even know why you have them, but for some reason there's some sort of negative association that your subconscious doesn't even realize. The reason why I bring it up is because things like this, right, or any signs, if you're thinking with your higher self, like you're very, I think you're very much in like a fight or flight response at all times, and it serves you 100%.
Yeah.
But I think that there is room for you to go and heal some of that stuff, so you can kind of see the forest through the tree sometimes, because I think it'll make you that much more attuned to it. But I don't know. I don't know anything. This is my first time meeting you. I get the feeling that I need to say that to you because of the fact that, you know, my hand gestures trigger you, right? And anytime I have a trigger, especially with, they, like, I think to myself, okay, what is it in me that still bothers me, that's unhealed, where this is? And as I said that, some stuff's falling down here behind me. So I know I'm speaking truth, and I know
Yeah.
you understand what I'm talking about. What is it about me that's still unhealed that I let this upset me, or that I let that make me feel an emotion? Because
Yeah.
I feel
Well,
like it
I mean, I
triggers.
think I
Oh,
yeah, I think I could speak to it almost immediately. I've been lied to my whole life by close people, I've got the abandonment issue. So
mhm.
I am just a fighter for truth, and lies do trigger me.
Yes,
So, when I see a hand gesture that I don't think, if it's just a hand gesture that I think is unintentional, but when I think there's intentionality behind it, then, that leads me down the avenue. Okay, like, why are they doing this? It's almost like people that do that. It's like, I know something that you don't, or I'm intentionally doing this because I'm part of, a secret evil society. So, like, it is triggering when I think it's intentional.
yes,
Um, but, like, I do think it's serving me right now for sure.
yes. I definitely think that you've been given this sight, and that you're like awakening a ton of people, right? Even if it's for entertainment purposes, and they're just kind of like, I've never subscribed to a channel, but with yours, I forget what it was that like, it was one of your first. I'm not sure if it was Jimmy Carter, if it was JFK, but I remember I'm like, man, this is so worth it, right? And then ever since then, the content that you're dropping, like part 2 of Kobe,
Yeah.
like, I want to send it to my friends. I'm like, guys, like, this is worth it. Like, just, it's better than Netflix, the garbage that they give you,
I've
even if
had
it's for
dozens.
entertainment.
Yeah, I've had dozens of people say, I've never even considered subscribing to someone. You're my first. Like, every day, someone's saying, you're the first person I've ever subscribed to. And it's like, it's so humbling. A year ago, I was still teaching high school PE, and, I was creating content, but had no visions of, doing it as like a full-time career. It's really cool. It's really, I'm just being myself, and like I do think I've been given some sort of crazy gift to see through things, and I'm just trying to embrace it and remain as kind and humble as I can.
And I think that's the key word there. Like, I love that you say humble. This was my dog. Let me try to show it here. This is Sushi.
Oh,
He's
awesome. Love it.
13 years old, and I specifically put a cigar in his mouth
Yeah.
because I had this picture of me smoking a cigar, and I remember, like, when you're gloating and you have a cigar and you're like, I remember the look on my face, and it's like, it was a hard lesson for me. Like, hey, like, you got to be humble.
I love
So,
that.
so
Yeah, I
I
love
put
it.
that in his mouth because that's how I picture him up in heaven looking over me. Because this dog, Sushi, like, man, he's taken me through some really rough times, and I feel like he's taken a lot of my pain. Again, part of that codependency. Like, he would sleep with me, and I feel like when he died in my arms, and I literally told him, like, it was a 5-day stretch, and he already had like pancreatitis, and I took him to the doctor. He got better, but I feel like he just kind of, it all happened just so we would have a Christmas, and it was right after Christmas, and my son got to see him. My son, he literally waited until my son woke up, and then as my son went down for breakfast with his grandparents, he passed in my arms because I slept with him on the floor outside.
Yeah, man.
And as much as you think it's the worst thing that could happen, the fact that I was there and I got to tell him, hey man, like, it's okay. I'm okay. You can go now, you know? And so I just think of him up there, and if you ever watch, I'm sure you feel some kind of ways about Robin, Uncle Pappy now, but the movie What Dreams May Come, I love how they, portrayed heaven, and the dog was the first thing that came to him.
Yeah.
Now that movie really pisses me off now that I watch it again, and because I'm a father, and I don't, you know what, it's been out long enough, and the fact that he cares more about finding, like, than like his kids, the entire time his kids, all they wanted was his approval. And I'm like, you idiot, like, here they are, they're helping guide you through hell and this and that, and you're thinking about going back and fixing your wife, like, and finding her again. Like, I just don't get it. So that's where, like, yeah, he's very sus for me in that sense.
Yeah.
And I sent that stuff to my mom, but she doesn't see it, and I'm like, okay, well, at least he's alive. If you want to see him, you can watch him every day. But to each
Yeah,
his own.
maybe your mom and my mom might get along.
Yeah, I think so. Funny enough, I'm also a teacher. For 3 years, it was supposed to be 1 year. I taught in South Korea. But I was just having such a blast. Like, it honestly was like living in the Matrix, because the biggest worry was like, what am I going to eat today?
Yeah,
And making good money for speaking my language, and
that's awesome.
there it's teaching. Like, I heard your story about it, so we don't really have to get into it because I'll put the other interview in there. I hope she still has it available. But how you said how you had to walk away from teaching, I felt the same thing 3 years in teaching, where I almost felt like I was being pushed out. And part of it was I knew I'd get stuck because it was too easy. And somehow I have to come back to the real world. But also, I just kind of feel like it's not just happened there, but in other situations too, where I overstayed my welcome and I almost felt like I was being pushed out. Do you ever get that feeling?
I think my school was very happy I left. I don't think they would have felt that the year prior, but they were hyper aware of the fact that of all my beliefs, because I was posting them, and I had students that followed me, and I had teachers that followed me, and they honestly even told me that if I was a science teacher and posting that stuff, I would have been fired because it was going against content. But the fact that that I was a PE teacher saved me, and they weren't pushing me out at all. And I think I had been there too long, but I definitely got the feeling that they were relieved I left. In fact, it was coming to be around spring break, and I told my immediate supervisor, my department chair, I was like, I just want you to know, because I'm up front with everybody. I was like, I'm considering not coming back next year. And I just want you to know that I'm pondering it, just to give you a heads up. And And he's like, okay. He came back the very next day and he's like, well, if you ever decide that you don't want to come back next year and you don't want to be here the rest of this year, you have enough sick days where you could be done today. And I was like, that's very interesting. And then by the end of the week, I left because I had some unfortunate things happen with kids being disrespectful and administration not backing me and yada, yada, yada. It was, I was meant to leave there and I don't regret it for a second. And on to bigger and better things. But yeah, they were not sad to see me go. Some students were, the majority of the students were, but the administration definitely was not.
So my mom was a teacher for 20 somewhat years. She taught religion. She taught children with learning disabilities, DD, I think. But one thing that I realized and why I couldn't be a teacher here is because it seems like it's not at all about the kids. It's more to do with the parents, especially when you go in the nice areas. You deal with a lot of Karens, you deal with a lot of the politics and this and that. And I don't do well in that, like, constructs. At least in Korea, when I was teaching, like, the parents would be like, they were very respectful. It was all about the kids. It was all about teaching. So it was teaching to the pure sense. But I remember when I first left and I knew I was leaving for good, or at least maybe the first year, and I was like, okay, I'm never going to see these kids again. And they're like 6 years old. And I would tell them, hey, so, last teacher is going back to Canada. Like, I won't get to see you, but because I really like these kids. And they're like, okay, see you later. And I just remember being like, what the hell? But they're kids, right? They're worried about, like, where they're going to play. I don't think it really lands for them.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was just funny. That reminds me of that. But I did really enjoy it. And I love teaching. Do you think that's something that you might, you are teaching now. Have you thought about doing like a updated curriculum, at least to like where we are?
It's crossed my mind. And when I first kind of woke up to everything, I really wanted to try to make an impact within the school system and make changes. But the way the school systems are here in America are just like, you can't touch that from the inside. It needs to be just completely destructed from the outside. And I've had some people, run the idea through me of doing like homeschool curriculum and things like that. But I don't miss it at all. I do still feel like I'm teaching. I do miss coaching. I do miss, I used to coach and do like one-on-one things with weightlifting coaching and powerlifting and CrossFit and shot put and discus. And I miss that one-on-one interaction with students and athletes. But so I would potentially get back into that, but I don't, I do still feel like I do wet my teaching whistle with this stuff. I wouldn't ever get back to anything official in an official capacity with teaching.
And what about sports? Like, what did you play as a high performance athlete?
Through 8th grade, I did everything, football, baseball, soccer, basketball. In high school, I was a football and track athlete. And then I went to college and played a little football. And I've always stayed active as far as competing, even in my adult years. I got really into CrossFit and weightlifting and did competitions. But that's kind of gone by the wayside. I have looked just at even getting back into, like, I moved to Florida this year and have been looking at getting back into some just intramural flag football or something like that. Yep. Just because I'm a competitive guy and, but part of my competitive nature, I get to put into my content, like just trying to be the best content creator there is. So, I still feel that I feel like creating content kind of helps me with that competitive nature of mine.
Definitely. The devil's in the details, and I don't know what it is. Like, you really simplify the content in a way where it seems like you can do it on the fly, but it's like not a second wasted. So yeah, I personally love editing. I was into filmmaking. Like, that's what I did in Korea as well with my buddy who was an aspiring filmmaker, and I love the editing aspect of it, the producing, the writing. So I have an eye for movies and content, and yours, like, So the thing, if anybody understands movies, they don't waste a single scene. It's way too expensive. So if something's
Yeah.
in there, it's by design, right? And all of your content is on point. So I see that, and I see the athlete in you. Um, in terms of football and track, what positions and what did you race?
I was a thrower I was mostly a discus thrower.
Okay.
I got long arms. So I was discus thrower. I didn't continue that after high school. I'm only like 5'10", so I could be a good discus thrower in high school, but just too short in the college ranks. And then I was linebacker for football.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. So you got some hard hits, huh?
Yeah, I was never afraid to like just sacrifice my body, like just harder I could hit someone, the better it felt. I'm sure a lot of that was just like pent up childhood, abandonment issues, getting out in a legal way,
Yep. No,
I've
I've
always
been.
had a bit of I remember like in 7th grade, just like a switch flipping where I was like, like before 7th grade, I was like timid, and something just happened where I was like, oh, I can just like hit people as hard as humanly possible, and it's okay. And just
Yeah.
like, so I just had that like aggression. I probably hit puberty too, and like the aggression switch just flipped. And yeah, I was a pretty good athlete back in the day.
Yeah, there's something about hitting guys like there's nothing like it. And I played basketball. I did track 4x1, triple jump, and volleyball. But so basketball is kind of like what I was classically trained at. But
Yeah. How
it's
tall are you? You said your brother is 7 feet.
I'm 6'7".
Oh
Yeah.
wow, awesome. You got
So
some Nephilim blood in you, or what?
I think about it, but no, I think I have like the regular teeth. But we're just European, like, and
Yeah,
I honestly, I think if I would have slept as much as my brother, like I would have been at least 6'9", 6'10", because he slept like 9 hours a day, even through high school. He'd come into
yeah, wow,
class like with like, so he was like one of the top players to come out of Canada at the time.
cool.
But it was so in terms of my playing, I got to play with him, but I always got to kind of live in his shadow, which was great because he took all the heat. So I played from a place of fear constantly. I don't know if you had this in sports, but that's what drove me. So like, when you say about like hitting guys hard, for me it was like dunking fast, like the most
Yeah,
efficient way, two-handed, get it down, and just so I don't get blocked. But that made
right.
me like almost like a Andre Kirilenko style, very skinny, but the elbows, and I could jump at 15, I think is when I peaked, funny enough. But and that's when I got to meet Kobe. So I mentioned before we started.
Right.
He was 16, and seeing that guy, because my brother and I were down there. My brother was highly scouted, and he was already like 6'10", 6'11" at like 16. So they were bringing him down to AU camps, and we went down to the War of the Woods. And I talk about it with another one of my interviews, so I don't want to get too into it, but essentially, I've never seen anybody move like Kobe. I've
Yeah,
never seen anything like it. The way first play, like I saw him getting boxed out, and the way he spun at a free throw and jumped up, knew exactly where the ball was going, like without hesitation, and like dunked it back, like just stand, jump. I haven't seen anything like that, and especially at 16. So it was very odd to me. They said that he's the top player in America, but we were told like, okay, this guy's top 10, this guy's top 30, and they were good, but it wasn't like nothing that we ever came across.
yeah,
So when
right.
you have that stuff about Miles, when he's playing ball, I get like goosebumps because I'm like, that's not a football player,
Yeah,
right?
right.
I Football players to me, and Charles Barkley jokes about this a lot, is football players are just basketball players that didn't make the team. And no disrespect, right?
Yeah, no, I get it.
But
Yeah,
like, so when I see that, I'm like, that guy is far. I don't know how he is because I don't really watch football.
yeah.
But I don't know how he is as a football player. But like,
Well, that's
unless
actually. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, that's like unless he's like a superstar, like it doesn't make sense to me why he wouldn't be playing basketball, especially at that age.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's where a lot of people actually disagree. Is they're like, there's no way Kobe could do what Myles Garrett is doing in the NFL because he's like the best player at his position that's come along in the past, 10 or 15 years. And that's where I'm like, well, if Kobe's all roided up and he was that insane of an athlete, and maybe he's actually younger than he was even presented, or maybe there is a spiritual component to it, like, I don't know. Did you ever see
Well,
my Michael Jordan video that
I haven't
I've
seen
done
the
a
Michael
Michael
Jordan.
Jordan video, and like there's a lot of it just with like numerology, but then there's also things of like like Lucifer was known as like the Lord of the Air and Air Jordan, and there's a video of like Michael Jordan, like literally his arm like extending, and it's like, and then have you seen the video of Kobe and Michael, like literally like identical movements there, that, so like reality is so much different than we
I'm
realize. And
very familiar.
it's amazing. Like, it's really cool to me that you met Kobe in person, not for like the fame aspect of it, of just like, okay, I know he was at least a
Yeah, I
real
shook his hand.
entity, he's
Yeah.
not just like some hologram on the TV.
And look, no disrespect to anybody. Like, Kobe's an amazing player. When I met him, he was so charming.
Yeah.
Because I was a nobody as far as, and he just came up, like, shook hands, hey, what's up, to me and my brother, and and then they're like, oh yeah, that's the top player in America. And I remember he had some Oakleys on, and I thought to myself, are those fake Oakleys? I didn't realize at the time, like, this is Kobe. Like, then
Yeah.
afterwards, I got to play in a scrimmage with them, and like the whole St. Joe's was packed in Philadelphia. All the kids came to see him, and like I didn't even touch the ball. I was on his team.
Yeah.
But the stuff he was doing, it was just like next level. And it's so, and here's the thing, like, we worked our asses off, my brother and I think me even more so. But it's like I couldn't comprehend the level of work you would have to put to be Kobe. Later on, he explained it about 4 practices a day. But I don't know, even in my 30s, I was playing basketball, just having a pickup game, one game, my Achilles was like so sore the next day. So I know they have technology and all that, and like
Yeah.
when his Achilles tore, he had help, but I think there's a lot more to this. First of all, even aging, I think it's something that is like, I was just talking about it today. I have no proof. There's just my feel. If you look back at the Bible, right? People say, oh, they didn't know how to count. Like, there's no, like, Noah lived to what, 900?
Yeah.
And they were much larger, right? So there's a lot of things that are hidden from us, and I don't even know if it's by design. Blowing out birthday cakes, celebrating New Year's, all these holidays. It's like there's so much emphasis put on it. And I'm a marketing guy, right? I'm a marketing and sales guy, so I can't help but see it in everything. Like, even this cup, it's my favorite cup, but it has like the Starbucks logo on it. You can't really see right now, but
Yeah.
um,
The mermaid logo.
yeah, and it's like they spend billions of dollars on that, of what the concept that you should think when seeing that, right?
Right.
And you think the music, you think the lattes, you think, the atmosphere. And it is so powerful in terms of the indoctrination. And I think it's down to the, Father Time. If you saw, one of my episodes, we talked about Tyson, 33 seconds left. They're talking about, oh, Father Time, and it was just pathetic to see. Like, and to me, like, I can't watch sports anymore. Do you still watch sports?
I got back into football this year. Last year I really couldn't. This year it has been a nice mental break. It's like the only time where I'll just unplug from my research. I'll I used to be a huge diehard Chicago Bears fan, and now I'll watch a game, but I don't have like any emotional investment in it. It's just to give me a mental break from researching or posting or doing what I do. So I did abandon it completely, and then this year I've just been like, all right, I need the mental break.
Yeah. And so what do you think? Are the Chiefs going to three-peat based on the, what is it? Not the numerology, but like there's a lot of signs for it. They've been doing
I Did you see my post I did on it or no? I
No,
did a post.
no, I
Oh
haven't
yeah.
seen it yet. Okay.
Yeah, I did a post.
Oh wait, no. Sorry, no. Yes, it was your post.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. I just thought they,
It's funny. I just forgot that I'm talking to you because I'm having a conversation. Yes, it's your post, and you actually bet on it.
I did, yeah.
You showed us.
Unfortunately, one of my bets was I really thought the Lions were going to be there too because of what I thought was predictive programming. So I had one bet that it was Lions and Chiefs, but then I have another bet just like the Chiefs winning straight out. And I don't think they'll miss the opportunity to have the MAGA colors and the three wins in 3 years and all the different, things with it. And like, their first win of this potential three-peat, they were doing all sorts of, we're going to win 3. And I just think it's coming. I don't think they'll miss that opportunity, especially this year with Trump being elected.
So I have a good friend who's into it, and he said he's been studying the numbers for a while now. Have you been studying it, or is it more just on a peripheral, like I forget the term. Is it numerology or like what you showed in your
like gematria type things?
Yes,
or no?
Yeah.
No, not like sometimes words will just stick out to me that like don't belong in advertising or when people are talking, and they'll just be like, that word it didn't make sense there, so I'll do the gematria of that word, and then like some of the words that will come back with that match the numerology. I'm like, like one time I did a video on Tom Brady being like having an association with Gary Busey, and they showed Gary Busey my video, and like
with the
at
tissue.
That time, he's like, what? He's like waving the white tissue. I'm like, and then he kept saying tissue and white, waving the white flag.
It was really odd.
The white flags like I surrender, and then the word tissue was some word was like name identification or something like that. So yeah, I'm into it, but like I don't spend a ton of time on it. I just sometimes it just sparks in the back of my mind, like I should look into the numerology of that word.
Interesting. Yeah, to me, stuff like that, it's like I want to understand it, but at the same time, I know how my mind works. I'm like a dog on a bone. And, I consider myself more of a toother. I get my tooth into something and I don't let go until I have like at least a basic level of understanding.
Yeah.
But then I let it go. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I see it for what it is and on to the next thing. And it always opens up more. That's the thing. It's like, I think there's this misconception that, oh, you truthers, you think you know everything. And because of that, it almost like it attracts a certain type that it's important to them. Like, and I saw it right now, even with the 24-hour bullshit experiment, they call it final experiment, right? And just how like, people get stuck in this, like I am this and I believe this, and that is impossible to happen. So, and then, they're tearing each other apart, which, and I'm no disrespect to what you see, because I personally, like, I look at egos personally. I see egos, and I see, I don't believe in empaths. I believe in there's, there's light and there's darkness and there's everything in between. And I think that, especially when it comes to the body, the mind fails us constantly. And there are certain ego, like even for you, for example, a straight question, the fittest flat earther. Are you the fittest flat earther?
Oh, no, I'm sure not.
Right? So it's like, if somebody doesn't know you, it's like, well, why would he think he's the fittest flat earther, right? It's just like, right. That 33 that where you're like, oh, I got to explain that. So I personally, I had a problem with this when I wouldn't say a problem, but I was always, because, they say, oh, like, don't be conceited, right? But as an athlete, like, how can you not believe in yourself? You have to believe that you're going to win every game and you're going to like hit every shot. And you have to have that mentality. And even when you miss, you're like, no, I'm going to hit the next. I'm going to hit the next. So there's like this fine line between, I guess, being conceited and just like loving your craft and the work that you put into your craft.
Yeah, I remember actually like having like, I don't want to call it an identity crisis, but I literally remember in college having
Mhm.
this, like, these countering thoughts, like exactly what you're talking about. Like, I need to be just like a murderer on the football field and like just have this mindset that no one can freaking stop me, and like I'm better than everyone, and like, but I also like want to be this humble person that would like knock the shit out of someone, but then like help them
Help
up.
them
So
up.
it was like,
Yep.
how do you balance that, you know? And I remember being like, where's, like, exactly what you're saying, like, where's the line of who I am, what I want to be, and like as a, you know, 19-year-old, I was like, this is hard to figure out, you know,
Yep.
and you know, now as like a 44-year-old, I'm like, no, just like, you know, there's a, just whatever authentically comes to you, and you know, and it's okay to be the murderer and help someone up, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like I often think of that. I'm like, look, like I consider myself the almost like the spirit animal of an elephant. Like I'm very kind and I try to lead with kindness and I actually go out of my way actively to be kind. If I think about myself and I look at my darkness, and I've said this for a while, I don't think of myself as like I'm a good human being because I've seen my darkness. I've sinned. This is a reminder to me of like missing the mark, this silver bullet, right? And that although I strive, I constantly miss the mark. Um, and that's okay because I come back and I try that much harder. But over time, I've learned to give myself grace and love myself fully for what I am because I realize that I'm a lot more than this body, this mind, that I'm actually this soul that,
Yeah,
if you believe in heaven, soul is perfect, perfect light, it's love, it's everything. It has everything it ever wants, all the wealth in the world. We are just put into this world of duality. We literally, our first breath is like, and waking up to this you know, I don't even know what to call it, this realm, but of complete opposites. And then the wool is put over. I mean, we get vaccinated right away, a bunch of vaccines and, stuff in our eyes. And like, it's just, I don't know, by the time you even come to, consciousness of like, I guess maybe two earliest memories of three, you've already been indoctrinated by a bunch of stuff that you don't even know. And that's what you're fighting against.
yeah, it's funny. You know, sometimes I have these thoughts that you're talking about duality, that we're literally, that I really do think we choose to come here. I do, but I like, part of
Yep.
me thinks we choose to come here and there's this experience and we're trying to learn, and it's like soul lessons, and that everything, even like the bad and the evil, is by design to, you
Yep.
know, if we just came here and it was all heaven and perfect, and like we're not going to be able to experience all the emotions and the fear and all that. But then like, so sometimes I'm thinking, okay, that's all by design. Like there are literal beings here that know what this place is exactly, and they're the ones trying to create the duality so we can have the experience. But then where my brain like eventually always gets to is, but like there's like real evil here. It's one thing if you're setting things up, but it's like there's real evil, there's real poison, there's real like death by these like evil controllers. It's not just all show. I think a lot of it, I think it's a lot more show than than
Yep.
most people realize. Like I think most of the quote unquote serial killers didn't exist. I think they were actors on the world stage, just like, you know, a lot of these people. But it's like, okay, if this is just for an experience and there's intentional duality, well, then why are they vaccinating us and trying to dumb us down and trying to literally poison us? So it's like, that's when I come to the point, no, there actually is like a biblical spiritual war going on here. It's not just about being here for an experience and a soul lesson. And that's just how my brain processes things. I've only been awake 2 years myself, so I'm still trying to wrap my head around the full reality of where we are.
So and I really like that you say that because I ponder this daily, and I think to myself, okay, so I go one step back where I'm like, but God created all of it, right? And it's like there's people will say, well, what kind of God allows this and this and this and this, right? And then that's a very tough question to answer. Like I say, I don't know. But what I do know is, from my understanding of God, God gave us free will
Yeah.
and unconditional love. And he loves you so much that if you decided today you could go out, get drunk, and run over a crowd of people, right? And God wouldn't stop you, right? So if you want to do bad in this world, I do not think of evil as just like, I think evil is always there. Like that kid that stole, I remember the first thing, you remember the first thing you stole from me was like a little candy, or it was like a pencil. And I
Yeah.
remember the feeling I got. I got like this excitement, like because I knew I was doing something that I shouldn't, even I
Yeah.
was like 4 years old. So I think that that's constantly there. And sin, there's pleasure in it. And, people can partake in that. But I saw a really good video that I would like to believe that evil is a person. The devil is a person. Jesus even spoke of the devil, and Jesus never mocked the devil. Um, Jesus, the devil said, "Hey, I'm going to give you all the whatever of this world."
Right.
Jesus never mocked him, saying, "Hey, it's not yours to give," because he knew that he's the prince of darkness. So the way I try to explain it in my limited capacity is, if God was to create a realm, and and he had light beings, it only makes sense that you would create a container of darkness. And then there are light beings that spark, shine a light, because a candle will light up an entire dark room. Light always wins. And so I look at it as like, at times I look at it as, I no longer think narcissist, sociopath, psychopath. I look at it as demons, and I look at it as angelic light. And some people are so far away that there's like no chance. Like imagine hurting a child. How could you ever even forgive yourself? Like that
Yeah.
person's gone. That's a demon. That's a ghoul. Like,
Yeah.
and they not only will they judge themselves, but God will judge them, right? But it is very real. I've seen evil, but I've seen people with evil hearts, right? And I see people with good hearts. And then there's everything in between.
Yeah.
Um, and I do agree with you. It's a spiritual war. I I think it's a spiritual war more than people care to even realize. And then there's the few that are like, I'm not afraid. And I think I see that in you. You're not afraid to speak your truth. You're not afraid to call it out and let people do whatever they will with it. And I think that there's a lot of power in that. You were talking about that place in, I think it was your videos about in where Borat is from, Queen,
Yeah. Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. So what's that
Yeah.
place with the where the fallen angels probably reside with the
Yeah.
200
Astana, which
Astana.
is also an anagram for Satan. Yeah.
So I honestly think you could go there and you would walk about completely unharmed.
Yeah, I agree. People ask me all the time if I'm fearful because of everything I talk about and expose. And there was a week, probably just 1 week, where I was paranoid, I was fearful. And I was coming across things that I thought I was literally the only human in this realm to know and to find out. And I was like, and then I was going to expose them. And I was like I'm walking the fine line here and living like a dangerous life. And that week I just put on the full armor of God, and I was like, I have no fear. And like ever since then, I have had zero fear. I'm like you said, I feel like there's some spiritual protection that I just because I have embraced
Yeah.
the power of believing in Jesus. And I don't mean that in a arrogant way at all. I
Yep.
just
Yep.
completely humble in saying that, but I've just embraced it and I have no fear. One thing I wanted to mention, just because you mentioned remembering the first time you stole something, I can remember the first time I did. I don't remember how old I was, but I was at a friend's house and he had money out on his desk and it was probably like $5. And I remember taking it. And then like, I have just I've always been this way. Just my conscience eats at me. I can't even like tell white lies. So I did this. And then probably within an hour, I had bet him different bets. Like, I bet you $1 this, and I would intentionally lose to give it back to him. So like by the end of the hour, I had given it all back by losing bets to him. And I like just remember this like relief of, okay, I'm never doing that again, because I don't ever want to feel like that again.
That's really funny. And again, that's like the childlike brain. You don't realize you're actually sinning by continuing
exactly.
right? Rather than just fessing up and making amends. And I think this is the hardest part that I find even in the truther community is it's very difficult for people to be like, oh, I was wrong. And I get this, all the time from my fiance. But you said, and I'm like, I know I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I was like literally, when what was it, on the 17th when there was the sniper, it freaked me out because I was like, we're this close to a civil war. So I went and I, not getting too much into it, I prepared.
Yeah.
Because it made me feel better. And I'm seen as I'm crazy. I'm like, you know what? You won't say it if things hit the fan, but I realized that that's the feeling that was put on me, and I was supposed to feel in this lower vibrational where I'm worried. Now I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what? I just like seeing everything that happened with the inauguration, and I'm literally making fun of it with memes. I that's all I can do, because to me it's a big show. The entire thing's a big show. I clearly have no control over it. My vote doesn't matter. If anything, I'm not voting specifically. So I'm saying, well, I didn't vote for you. Like the best thing I can do is ignore it. I'm of the belief, they want us to fight. I'm not going to fight. What am I going to fight? I'm just going to ignore. I have parking tickets I haven't paid. Okay, like I'll pay them when I feel like it. Like
I've had a roller coaster of emotion. I wouldn't say emotions, but a roller coaster of my thoughts of the political world starting, like my entire life. I knew about 9/11 at a pretty early time period, like probably within the 3 or 4 year period of it happening. That was like my first awakening to the government isn't what I think. It's not something to be trusted. They're not like the good guys. But like at that point, I had convinced myself that they would kill, 1,000 people, maybe for the greater good. Like maybe that allows them to save up. Yeah. So I was under that impression for a while. But then like I was there and I voted one time, and it was for Obama only because I was like, at the time I was like, I want to be part of like voting for the first black man to be president. And
and it was the right thing to do. I loved him at the time.
Right. So I had these thoughts, and then I didn't really pay any attention to politics. And then I woke up and I had these thoughts that everything, they're just puppets. They don't do anything. They're like absolutely just literally actors. And then I'm like, I think that's what they want people to wake up to think, because now I'm very much at the place where I'm like, oh no, Trump is like you've clearly probably seen my videos on who I think Trump is. And like, I'm like, oh no, like they want people who wake up to think it's all just a puppet show. But I'm like, Trump is literally, in my opinion, like the literal devil, like Lucifer in the flesh. So I'm like, so I've gone all over the place with what I think the politicians are, especially the presidents.
Now this is the interesting thing. As you get more information and more insights, are you willing to change your mind if it turns out that Trump actually was a good guy? And I'm not at all saying, because to me, I went from hating the guy, but then realizing like how misedited he was, to coming back like, oh, and then I see your stuff and I'm like, how could I be so stupid? Now, I'm not saying that I believe everything you have hook, line, and sinker, but I consider it.
Right.
And it makes a lot of sense. And when you're showing, everything, all the information, even down to like Alec Baldwin being at trial, well, it's just like, to me, it's just too much fuckery. Right.
Yeah.
But I still, again, I don't know. So
I told my wife just this morning, we were talking about Trump, and she was asking me like my opinion on like his gender comments, and I'm like, I'm all for that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I worked at a high school where they put tampons in the boys' bathroom. I'm
Yeah.
like, like that's ridiculous in my opinion, because one, like, fine, if like, not that I agree with it, but if there is a girl transitioning to a boy, like that's a whole different story. But that person should not be in the boys' bathroom, in my opinion. And like the fact that they have tampons in there. So anyway, my wife asked me, and I'm like, she's like, what are your thoughts? I'm like, I'll tell you what, like, if I wasn't who I was and didn't believe what I do and know what I know, I would be like all for Trump, what he's saying, but I just don't believe what he's saying is the full truth. I think he's doing it to set us all up to all worship the ground he walks on, and eventually for the entire world to worship the ground he walks on. So I'm like, everything he's saying, like, I like. If I was anyone other than myself, I would be a Trump fan. So I'm never opposed. Like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I will, the only thing right now, I've made two things I could think of right now out of the hundreds of posts that I've made that I could do retractions on. One is just, I thought the Lions were going to be in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs.
Right.
Like, I didn't push that. I was like,
I bet they changed it because of you. They're like, we can't let him be right on that too.
Well, that I even was like, consider that could be a possibility. And then the other one was like literally I misspoke about the distance of like, I think I said like a star was supposedly trillions of miles and it was half the distance. Like, it was a miscalculation, but like, other than that, no one's ever come out and been like, look, Tyler, you're wrong, and here's the proof. But I wouldn't be opposed if someone wanted to do that. And I would make a video being like, guys, I'm wrong. Like, I have no problem being wrong ever. I invite being wrong because I like truth. And if I'm wrong and it means I have more truth, I'm all for it.
It's funny. I'm at the point where if after this video you start posting, this guy's a Freemason, I'd be like, man, I would have to do some deep soul searching. Like, what am I missing? Because a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, like I just see it. Now I don't agree 100%. Because again, I don't know. It resonates, and that's it. And it's entertainment. This is just entertainment. We're just two dudes, shooting the shit.
Wink, 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 wink.
Yeah, because our wives can't, handle it. So
yeah.
Let's let's talk about that a little bit. Has she come around, or does she just kind of let you operate in, okay, you do that, and I'm gonna wait patiently while you figure out whatever it is you're going through?
We struggled immensely when I first woke up, to the point where I think we both thought that we would end up divorced. We have way past that. And, she was seeing me struggling with every relationship in my life, because not only like I told you, I came from an affluent neighborhood where everyone is extremely educated. Everyone went to college. So everyone's extra indoctrinated from where I came from. Yeah. So every family member, every friend that I had that was still from like my neighborhood, and she was just seeing everyone think I was crazy. So I had to be crazy. It took her cousin her 21-year-old cousin coming to our house, and like him being very awake and red pilled, and us interacting very normally for her to be like, oh, there are other people that think like you. And she has, ever since that moment, that was like probably a year and a half ago, she is totally chilled out. She sees a lot of what I do, but she still doesn't really want to entertain it. She'll watch one of my videos maybe a week. And it's to the point where I think she knows I'm right about a lot of the things. And even with like her talking about Trump, she was like, I like what he's saying, but she's like, I know too much too. Like she knows she doesn't live on a globe. And so we just have an understanding that I do my thing and I talk about it sparingly, and it's all good now.
So I mean this with the utmost respect, Tyler, but I feel like I have to tell you, you do have crazy eyes. And I recognize that, because crazy recognizes crazy. And I heard Bill Burr talk about this first. Like, he can pick up I can pick up when somebody's different,
Yeah.
because I'm very different. I always have been. And like I said, I'm hard on myself. I never considered myself to be a good man. I considered myself to be a man of values that were instilled in me, and I live by those values. I live by those rules. But I also think of myself, okay, put in a situation in war, I could kill. And yeah, I have a conscience, but I know that I have that in me, and maybe it comes from athlete, kind of like that killer instinct. And I think a lot of men have this, and think what you will about Jordan Peterson, but like I think that's one positive thing that he talked about is masculinity, and that men need to be dangerous, but keep it under control, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love
I
that
see
part.
that in you. I see that
Yeah.
in you, that you are a dangerous man. But I also, like, personally, I do see some pain in there, and that's my only you know unsolicited advice is explore that, because I think it'll allow you to see even more, and have I guess come to I think it'll open up even more for you as
Yeah.
your heart opens up, and you lead with your heart and everything.
Do you know the show Dexter?
Yeah, yeah, I could totally relate, man. Yeah.
I've watched every episode, and the whole time my wife and I watched that, I always would tell her, I don't think I would have. I think I could be Dexter. Like, I literally think I could murder child murderers and
Yeah,
have
yeah,
like eat a meal
yeah,
and be
yeah.
fine. And like but like only against bad people, like I've been in probably 3 or 4 fights in my life, and every single time it was sticking up for
Yeah.
someone being bullied or picked on, or so yeah, I've never been told I have crazy eyes, but
Yeah, it's a
maybe I'll take
compliment,
that
man.
as a compliment. Yeah.
It's a compliment. I see you sometimes in your videos where you're just like, you're not even blinking. You're just like, and you got this anger in you,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yes.
like, but I respect it, man. Like put it this way, I'd let you keep my dog overnight. Um, like, I could tell you're a good dude.
But not your kids.
No. Funny enough, yeah, I'd let you chill with my kids. I would.
Yeah.
My
All
girl,
right.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
That's a different level. That's like, because you never know if the dude is really stand up. Dudes are weird about, chicks. Some dudes just like kind of, they come in,
yeah.
like I never had respect for that.
No, I've been with my wife um, since like we were good friends in high school, started dating
Nice.
right after high school. I'm like a one lady type of dude. That's all.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Are you
Yeah.
guys planning kids yourself?
No kids. Just wasn't, we didn't want them. Like, I wanted them more when I was 18 than when I was older. Like, once I became a teacher, I just like,
Yeah.
I just don't want to come home to kids. My wife never wanted kids. And then we
Okay.
went through a period of time where we wanted them and it just wasn't in the cards.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like passed, like our period of time wanting kids and it not working out, just like past our window of wanting it. So, we're cool being dog parents. We get up and go do what we want, explore, and we're loving life down here in Florida right now.
Funny enough, I used to see like dudes, like dads, like, with like an angry wife at the gas station. I think there was a scene in like Sopranos or something. Um, and it's like, they just look so miserable, right? Kids in the back and whatever. But it's one of those things where, again, I feel like Hollywood kind of like does like a misconception of that. Uh,
Yeah.
and teaching other people's kids, yeah, they get annoying, but you do have your favorites, right? And I don't care what any teacher says, you always have your favorites. These
Oh
kids,
yeah.
it's like,
100%.
and you
Yeah.
treat them different. And I tell this to my son, like, don't get straight A's, for me or because your mother wants it. Get it because you get treated better and you get more attention. And this is how life is, when you're
Yeah.
kind,
For sure.
things happen. So my advice to any man specifically is if you have the slightest inclination, do it, because it's a completely different ballgame, and you can't, especially when you're coming from a place of abandonment, lack, conditional love, which we all know only women and children get unconditional love. For men, we have to perform
Yeah.
constantly. But that is the closest that you'll feel to unconditional love is like from a child. And the
I don't
closest
know,
that
my dog, man. I
oh,
honestly
but that
think,
one's easy. That one's easy. That's
yeah,
dogs
right,
are angels. I think
yeah,
you're absolutely right about like the dogs and the stars. And I
yeah,
honestly think they're angels and they're here to raise us.
yeah.
Like I'm the guy that goes to a dog park and I'll talk to the dogs, pet the dogs, and I don't even talk to the people. Like so I love dogs.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but yeah, I think I don't know. As a man, I recommend that to anybody if they have the slightest inclination, because it gives you something greater than yourself. Um, no matter what, you got to show up, and that's I mean, it's not for everybody, but that's my that's my spiel on that.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I would. I mean, I have a 2-year-old nephew and a 5-year-old niece, and I love the crap out of those kids. And I do think I would be a phenomenal dad because I just like, I do just love kids. I'm just a, like I have never felt, except for that small window, I've just never felt that desire for it like I did when I was younger. And I'm like, if I don't feel that desire, I just don't want to bring humans into the world unless I'm like, no, I'm going to be like, and like, I know the second they'd be born, I'd be all in, but like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's just, it is
Have
what it
you
is. I think a different life, another life. I'm sure I'll have kids.
have you adopted dogs? Like, do you
Yeah.
have any
Yeah. Yeah.
rescues?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So keep in mind that there's another opportunity there, and just don't
Yeah.
completely and that's there's always kids that, for example, they come in pairs or threes. Like watch the movie Instant Family with Wahlberg, regardless of how you may feel about him. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've done anything with him yet, but that's a great movie too. And it's funny because it's more challenging than ever. And a lot of these kids have abandonment issues, they can't trust. There's some that will hide food because
Yeah.
they never knew when their next meal was coming. But
Right.
I think the teacher inside you and just the good human inside you, that's probably something that you know would resonate with you as well. So I want to talk to you about money and wealth. Like, so what you consider to be success, right? Because obviously as an athlete, like crushing skulls at one point, you didn't use those terms, but I get that. Like, for me, it was very difficult when I stopped being an athlete. It's like, okay, well, if I'm not a basketball player, what am I, right? And I've found this many, many times that I needed to perform to even be worthy of love. And I didn't realize that until I was 40, that I didn't know how to accept love for the sake of love. And I
Yeah.
probably still don't fully. I'm still like weary every time I get it. When my fiance is like, wow, you have like beautiful feet. I'm like, what? Like it just doesn't, but okay. So what is your idea of success?
Are
And
you
has it
asking
changed?
it specifically towards like monetary or just in general?
Yeah, in general, because like a lot of people put it on monetary, but okay, awakening to the fuckery that is, right, a matrix. And like the way I see it is they just put this monetary system in there for the slaves,
Right,
like, oh, you get to pick your slave master and then you get a credit system and here
right.
it is, but it's not backed by anything except you guys all believe it's worth something and go buy stuff you don't need to impress people you don't like, and do things you hate until you're 65, and then maybe you'll have 10 years to enjoy your life.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And
as a teacher, I'll talk just in terms of finance for a second. But as a teacher, I was a teacher for I think just exactly 20 years, and it didn't matter those 20 years if I was the worst teacher in the school or the best teacher in the school. I was going to get paid the same.
yeah,
Now, like I said, as a competitive, motivated person, again, humble with humility, I
yep,
think I was always one of the best teachers in the school, not because I was the smartest or anything, but because I cared. I cared about the kids. I was teaching something that I cared about. I was passionate about it. So I was always a really good teacher because I cared, but that didn't make me the most wealthy teacher. in terms of money. Now coming into the content world and like, you know, how my videos do and things like that, actually having some say in how much money I'm earning or having subscribers because, you know, they think I'm doing a good job. It's just a very interesting, different world to be like, oh, if I do well and create good content, you know, it shows and I'm able to pay my bills a little easier that month. But I've never been someone, you know, I was always a teacher because I didn't care about money. You know, I've always wanted to pay my bills and provide, but, you know, it's, for me, success has always been about being an honest, caring person with, you know, relationships of people that appreciate me and care about me, and I can reciprocate that. And I don't know, it's really always just been more about fulfillment and happiness than anything extrinsic, you know. And I would say it's still that way. It's taken some adjustment because, you know, a lot of what I would say was my success, my first 40 years of life was developing positive, good relationships and having like a lot of the same friends from the time I was 10 to the time I was 40. And I've lost a lot of those friendships. My family and I have struggled. A lot of the students who I maintain relationships with because we became friends stopped talking to me. So it's been a very different kind of like work in progress the past 2 years. It's really, when I woke up, I came into this truther movement and world and thought it was like the best community ever. And, you know, I mean, you've seen some of the videos I've made the past few months, probably. I've really unfortunately came to realize that a lot of the people that I think befriended me for the wrong reasons. And, you know, so I'm still working on it. You know, right now I have a very small unit that I consider people I trust. And, you know, a lot of that is just me and my wife, and I fully trust her. She fully trusts me. And we, you know, lead lives where we try to enjoy each other and enjoy our surroundings and explore things together. So really success to me is just being happy. And, you know, even if it's one or two, I've always been about quality than quantity. If it's a handful of friends and relationships that I'm trying to grow and, you know, succeed with, that's okay by me.
Yeah, and you know, I do feel the pain in your voice as you say these things, and I can totally relate, right? Because I did have you know, a lot of my, let's just say, fun time friends. I used to have a lot of friends when I was younger, and the older I got, it was less and less. And I think part of it is, again, kind of that elephant spirit. It's like once I start seeing character or lack thereof, it's very difficult for me to go past that and just be like, oh, we're gonna be party friends or whatever. To me, character is probably the most important thing. And again, I do not think I am, you know, I'm trying to be as humble as possible, but I live by certain rules and laws, and I've noticed that, you know, most, or maybe not, you know, all people do that, and you know, that's their journey. But I'm not one to not speak up about it. So I have lost a lot of friends as well, but I also look at it like blessings, and maybe they're lessons too, in terms of like abandonment, you know, and oh, I got to act a certain way, you know, and put on a, you know, a fake smile. Like, I hate small talk. I can't talk about like just like how's the weather. Like, I
Yeah.
honestly, you know, just today before coming here, I was journaling in a Starbucks, and I sat down, and this nice lady let me have her seat. And nice lady, she's younger than me, but she was just kind, right? So
Yeah.
I started talking to her, and I'm talking to her right away about like, about that I'm going to interview you. I sent her, you know, hey, you know, check this out. And those are the only conversations I can have, and with people that kind of seem receptive to it. So it is lonely, but at the same time, I think, you know, there's a lot to it. With your brothers, like, are you okay with your brothers, or is it still kind of touch and go?
Just the past month, I would say, is like the first time we've been okay in a couple of years.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and we were the three brothers that like never fought growing up. Never. We were the three brothers that like up until 2 or 3 years ago, we would, you know, like we all lived in the same area because we wanted to be close to each other. We wanted to be close to my mom. We'd go out and, you know, my youngest brother would have a few friends, and like my other brother would have a few friends, but it would always be like the three brothers. We were the only, like everyone else we were around had siblings, but they weren't with their siblings. And it was always like we hung out. And then I woke up and I just like my brothers being like really my best friends my whole life and people I'd always share things with. I'm like, well, I'm seeing this, so I'm going to I
love you. I want you to know.
And of course they're going to see it. And it was like, Tyler's losing it. Like what is going on? And, you know, and it just turned into, it got ugly for a while because the more I found out, the more I was like, well, they have to see this one. And I, you know, unfortunately I learned the hard way that you can't get people to wake up. And I was fire hosing people and was like, look at this, you know, and I had to go through that because no one could have told me that. I had to experience that for myself. But we are finally, like literally with my brothers, it was like I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, they're not going to wake up. But like they were dicks a lot of the time, if I'm just blunt. Like they you know, there's one thing to not agree, but then to like mock me and be rude and call, you know, have names and things like that. It's like that's a completely different thing. And I've always been like a little bit more in touch with like feelings and emotions than them. Yeah. They're like a little bit more closed off. So I would try, I'd be like, I would send them like a long text and like heartfelt thing. And then they'd either ignore it or change the subject. And like, I tried 10 times and eventually I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to stop trying. And like just this past, I went home for this winter break and things were finally good. And unfortunately I got sick and didn't spend as much time with them as I wanted, but things are cool now. They'll look at things once in a while, just like out of courtesy, but it's like, dudes, come on, I've posted 400 things. You don't think one of them is right?
You're like, I'm kind of a big deal, you know? And they're like, fuck you, Tyler.
Well, like my middle brother would always say that phrase. So it's like, I kind of just want to throw it back. But like, you know, I don't actually think that, but I'm like, there's millions of people that agree with these videos, guys. And you think every single one of them is wrong.
Yeah, that's so funny. Like you and your flirfs. But it's so funny because like my brother, same. I mean, my brother plays along.
Are you the middle?
I'm the younger. There's only the two of us.
Oh, two. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but I always felt like the older brother. So I'm a lot like you. I've since learned that I have a lot of feminine energy, right? So there's masculine and feminine. The creative comes from the feminine. Yeah. And I've always been a creative since I was very young. Like the true creators in the world are females. They create life. Men build, and men kind of logically, pragmatically, you know, you put the masculine to it and you put it into action in the 3D reality. But the whole ideation of it is very feminine. And you know, a lot of guys don't want to admit that, but like that's just how it is. And again, if you watch episode 1, you'll see Dr. Andrea talking about that. And if anything, she helps me get in touch with my feminine, and because the intuition you get from it is very powerful. Now, there's a couple of things as you're talking about this. So the fact that you got sick, I don't think was by accident. It might be smog, all that stuff, but I actually think that I've come to realize that bad things happen in threes. And at least for me, because that's my lucky number and that's my reality. But whenever bad things happen to me now, I take notice and I'm like, that's because something really good is about to happen. I always feel like there's a yin and a yang, there's the dark and light. And in order for God to make room for something really good, like healing between you and your brothers, it had to go somewhere else, the negative energy, and you took on it as sickness. And so now I look at that stuff, like when I see stuff falling apart around me, you know, somebody gets bad news or that seems like, oh my God. And in the past I'd be freaked. I'm like, no, I see that. I see what that is. And I'm actually writing a book about it that I dropped like chapter 1 yesterday about it. And I'm happy to send that to you if it resonates. But I
felt like you put something in the chat, but I couldn't get it to open up. There was something you put in there.
Here? Right now? Oh yeah,
no. In Instagram, but I couldn't get it to open for some reason.
I'll send it to you on Twitter. Is there a reason you're not on Twitter?
No, I am. I just can't get. I think I'm just super censored there, but I'm there.
Oh, okay.
I just have like 5,000 followers compared.
What'd you do, man? What'd you do?
Well, Elon doesn't like me posting SpaceX stuff, you know.
Yes, I
Although
want to talk about that a little,
although I'm shocked, you know, like Facebook has become
which is
awesome.
weird.
I love Facebook now. They censor flat Earth stuff, but everything else is a go. Like I literally posted on Zuckerberg and it went viral. I'm like,
Well,
okay,
it's not really him anymore.
well,
Like,
yeah,
I
that's
think it's
true.
probably the Coldplay guy. Is
Yeah.
probably
I'm not
more
sure
like
if it was ever really him to begin with. You know, I think
the fact that he's looking at cleavage now. I'm like, that's for sure not Zuck.
yeah,
You know, like that guy
yeah,
never cared.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm glad that you're kind of. It's funny enough. I only enjoy TikTok because of you, because what you were saying about how things go viral on TikTok, but they don't on IG.
yeah.
And
Well,
I'm like, man,
now TikTok is the worst of all of them now.
well, that's the thing. And I'm like, what are you doing to me, Tyler? Like, now I'm not supposed to, because I follow you there. I only follow a few, and I'm maybe I'll post some stuff. I don't know. I don't really. So this is the thing. I'm not getting caught up on the. I'm a lot like you. I'm even to the point where I've come to the realization I don't even care about being happy. To me, happiness is the same as eating chocolate, right? It's great,
Yeah,
right? But it's fleeting. And I think that this whole pursuit of happiness is just that carrot, like in front of people, like, oh, and then happiness at all. And let's go out and let's party and the weekend, right? The terms that
yeah,
they where you're weekend for the weekend and you're living for that, and the weekend warrior and all that. So I've kind of I've gone to the place like, okay, what do I really want? I love clarity. I love, like right now I could decide to just end this interview right now, walk away. You wouldn't feel good about it, but like I love the fact that I have free will to do
yeah,
whatever I want,
yeah,
right? And if somebody's trying to ruin my day, I can ruin their day. I'm happy doing that. Now, I'm not going to do it because I lead with kindness and I work hard at it. And there's a really good movie, if you haven't seen it yet. It's called the Mole, the Boy, the Fox, and the Horse. It's a cartoon.
yeah. I
It's like
haven't seen it.
30 something minutes. I'll post it in here. It's on Apple. Like, I highly recommend it, because the mole asks the boy, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the boy says, kind. Right. And it's like everybody thinks, well, I got to be this, I got to do that, I got to, like, all these titles. It's all bullshit. And I've heard people say, like, we're all in this meat suit, as in like we're in meat. But somebody else put it that we're actually in this meat suit as an NEET. Like, I'm meeting you in this realm. I already knew you from a past life. I know you
Yeah,
from future, but we're just meeting again on this present moment, which is all we have. So past,
yeah.
future, everything's already occurred, and it's just
I
like
like
a.
it.
So it to me, like that. When you talk about the soul, right, and you're here to experience. To me, anything that imprints on your soul, whether it's an experience, good, bad, just like when you're cooking, you need bitter, you need salt, right? So you're gonna fall, you're gonna hurt yourself. There's gonna be pain, but the suffering is what we choose, right? When things happen, it's like, do I go all in on this feeling? And those feelings really should be fleeting. They should be. There's a book called, and I'll pop it in there, it's Emotional Equations, where you can literally look at emotions as actual equations, like happiness equals expectation divided by reality, right? And then it just
Yeah,
kind of, it makes sense. Okay, if I reduce one and
right.
how it all affects, but it really should only lasting you for maybe 90 seconds to 2 minutes at most, and then you should release it. And as men, we don't cry, we hold it in, we pent up stuff, and it comes out in other ways.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you asked me my definition of success, and I did mention happiness for sure in there, but it's funny, like when I think about it, like my wife, part of what my wife and I would argue about is like, I'm diving into these these lies, these things like that, these deceptions. And she's like, all I care about is happiness. I just want us to be happy. And I'm like, well, that's you. But I prioritize truth more than happiness. Like truth matters to me more than happiness, whether that truth is sad or happy. Like I still care about truth more. So it's funny to just kind of like think about it a little deeper. And also there was something else I was going to mention with,
Take your
lost it.
time. No, take your time.
There was something else you were talking about.
I go on tangents. So I was talking.
Yeah, no, it was tied right in with that, and I just
Cooking, good, bad, suffering, pain.
oh, the suffering. There you go. Good. Yeah, I've always been so like my best friend for 20 years. I knew when I was a kid, and then we taught together, and we're no longer friends anymore because he can't handle who I am now. But he was an English teacher, and one assignment he asked his students to write always stuck out with me as I thought about it. But he asked his students to write about the 5 most impactful events in their lives and how it shaped them. And I thought about mine, and every single one of mine was a negative experience, but I thought it was the most impactful because it was a negative experience that I had turned into a positive because I learned from it. So it just resonated with me, kind of what you were talking about, how we choose suffering and things like that. And it's like, I never look at bad experiences as bad experiences, just as learning lessons, So I think it's all just a matter of perspective and how you're able to deal with things and react to things versus what the actual thing is.
And I've come to the point, and this may not make sense to a lot of people, but I like pain. I genuinely like pain. Similar to like when you go work out, right? It's like, man, like if I don't feel pain, I'm not working, right?
Yeah.
But I like pain because it tells me something's wrong. And most of the times, if I'm really honest with myself, I know exactly what it is if I'm not in denial. And also, it means I'm alive, and it's a signal, right?
Yeah.
It's a signal. Like, get up. Jocko has a really good thing. Good. Get up, dust off, recalibrate. I love that, right? And like I could wake up to that every morning. I'll pop that in the thing as well. But it's really weird but in another sense too, I realized that I also because my fiance pointed this out. She's like, "You like chaos?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm very comfortable in chaos. I was raised by wolves, and in a positive way, right? I immigrant parents, a lot of expectations. My brother was a superstar. I had to sink or swim, right? So, but I'm like, you ever watch the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer, the chess movie with the little boy? Did it resonate with you?
Yeah, I saw it. I think I saw it like in high school.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen it since. But I remember thinking it did even back then. Yeah, I'm sure it probably would a lot more now.
Watch it again. And realize why. I watched it recently, and I came to the realization maybe a year ago because I was showing my son, and I wrote a children's book about chess. And this is something that I think you should definitely look into.
I'm gonna have to pick your brain because my friend and I just we're gonna write a flat Earth children's book.
Perfect. I could totally help you. It's very easy. It's very easy. The hardest part is the imagery, but even that I'll show you some workarounds where you can take full control and so I have a whole series planned, maybe one about the realm itself, one about Bitcoin, basically just teaching kids tough concepts and first principles, right? Cool. But with the movie, so what I realized was there's this kid who's like, essentially they're seeing him as the next Bobby Fischer, and they're trying to teach him to be mean. His father's trying to teach him to be mean, like, and all the kid wants is his father's love and his father's approval. And he thinks that he only gets that from winning. And even his teacher, like, you got to be mean. You got to feel like when they come on the board, like they should be afraid to be in the same room as you. And he's like, I don't feel that way. I'm just not. And the mother said something really good. Like, if you change him, if you try to change him, because he's kind, he's good and he's decent. And I remember the kid was like 7 or 8, right? And it's such a beautiful story of like, because this as an athlete, like, you have to be, in a way, you have to be a piece of shit to really be like Tom Brady level. Like, I don't think Tom Brady is a good dude at all. He says the right things.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Like, I know Tom Brady. I know he's got like that sociopath. There's a reason last minute of the game he can win.
For sure.
You even saw when he was getting roasted, he was roasting everybody. Like that,
Yeah.
like he's on par with Trump in terms of things
Yeah.
just like bouncing off of him. And I've
Yeah.
played with guys like that, and I've always admired them because it's a mental strength to, I guess, to lack empathy. And it's very difficult to be a high performance athlete and have empathy. Like you say, knock a guy down and then pick him up. Like, because you can't help it. Like, for example, if you played guys that were much smaller than you probably played down a little bit, right?
100%. I mean, I remember like a specific practice, like not killing this kid that was a little smaller that I could have just like annihilated. And I'm like, I probably should just kill them.
Yeah, yeah. And so this used to drive my dad crazy. You know, he would call me the watcher, he'd call me the servant and all this. But just like your brothers, I think it's exactly what I needed to hear as part of my journey. I think, first of all, the fact that you really care what your brothers think, I would lean into that and I would make it my mission. Put it this way, if I was to say to you, hey man, can you bench 225 25 times right now? Is that something you could do?
No.
How long would it take you to do that?
Oh, I don't know if I could ever do that.
Okay, so what could you max out at?
What's that?
What could you max out of from a physical perspective? What do you think you can realistically get off if you trained every day for a year?
I mean, maybe 350, 325.
Okay. 10 times or what?
No. Oh, no, just once.
Okay. My brother just like told me, he's like, man, I'm doing 225 8 times again. I'm like, and for his size, I'm like, man, that's really good because that takes a lot. But the fact that you can think physically with your body that you can do that, and I put in the work, it's the exact same thing with relationships. So that's all I'm saying. All these things that you think you lost in the friends, to be perfectly honest, if you just change your reality in like and go inwards and know that you're deserving of your brothers understanding you, you're deserving of your friends waking up, they will come back into your circle. I don't know how it happens, but God does it. And it's almost like you have to, and you probably experienced this with your wife, where you really had to make a decision and you said, nope, I'm gonna make it work, and you lean in, and then it somehow it just like it works.
Like, I mean, as you're talking, I can think of 5 good friends that I no longer speak to that if I wanted to, I could have back in my life for sure. But like part of me is like, you know, part of me is guarded. Part of me is like, if you weren't there for me, like when I really needed you, do I really need you in my life? Part of me is like, those relationships were from when I was younger, and kind of like you're saying, like, do they really serve me now? Are they really the people that I want to be friends with anymore? So, but like for sure, what you're saying, like if I really wanted to, there are a few that wouldn't come back into my life, but I can think of a handful that for sure, if I just like worked at it and made like part of it probably is ego, that I'm like, I don't really want to like pretend I don't know what I know now to like make you feel comfortable. And
no. And I want to point this out. So first of all, I want to challenge you, send 5 texts when you're done. I'm going to challenge you, not for them, for you, because I think this will, you can still be your authentic self and still have these people in your life, and I guarantee it. I'm telling you from a personal place. Like, I've had 2 failed divorces, right? And I am like a hopeless romantic. So I went all in on both.
Yeah.
And the second one was absolutely devastating. I got my son out of it. Thank God. And when you really think about it, I'm like, man, I would walk through hell 10 times over. So it's like no regrets. And whatever, it's all a learning, right? So I honestly see these things as all lessons. And the only thing that I had to clear, the only thing that I always had control over is me. And when something bothers me, or when I feel any sort of lack now, like even when I was triggering you earlier, it bothers me. And I'm like, well, why does it bother me that I'm triggering you? That's your problem, right? I'm going to just keep on being my authentic self. And in time, you'll realize, hey, like, maybe it's nothing. I do not change who I am and what I say anymore based on what somebody. If I care and I'm kind, I'll explain, but I'm gonna be my authentic self. And I do believe that I can bring people into my life, even if it's, contained. Like, 3 hours. I go with the boys. I don't have to talk about all the conspiracies. I can talk about whatever. Their work problems. And to me, I'm just like, man, like it's such a simple problem. Like, what do you really want to do? But I just learned to bite my tongue about certain things. But
Right.
I just, because I really think like you're helping a ton of people, man. And I just want you to be in your best possible space to be able to do that even more. And like it just comes to you. And I want to see you, honestly, you're already famous in that sense, but I want you to be where, like, for example, if all of it went away, the fact that you got to go on Facebook and you got to go here and you got to go that, like, you got to think about it. It's like, okay, so what's going on? So now the devil wants to watch you a little bit more and they're allowing you back on Facebook. And then soon they're going to show you, oh, for this kind of content, you're getting more impressions and you're getting paid more. But you're losing followers when you talk about this. So all of a sudden, Tyler, don't talk about that because like you're gonna make 10K less a month, and and that's how it's literally like the movie Devil's Advocate, right? And at the end, Al Pacino comes back and he's like, pride is my favorite sin. Like, it's always they catch you with something, right? And it's impossible. Like I say, so it's a lot easier for me to be like, yeah, I'm flawed, but I live by a moral code. And something that I notice with you is you say, people ask you to look for stuff, but unless it comes to you, you don't really look. It's unless it actually comes to you. And I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of so the more you get in touch with that, like that divine creator sense and heal. I think we're all here to heal. I think we're all traumatized, and we've been traumatized nonstop by the system.
What if I get in touch with what's, you say you see the pain. What if that pain is serving me and I heal that pain, and then I no longer am having this desire to help humanity?
Well, then you walk away.
Yeah.
So what I would say to you is, first of all, have you really thought about the repercussions? If you wake up more than 5% and it all falls apart, there's going to be a plan B. There's going to be a plan C. This goes way beyond, I don't feel the need to wake people up anymore. I did for the first 2-3 months. And then I came to the realization, man, like, I like content. I like deep, meaningful conversations. And whoever it resonates with, it resonates with. And hey, if it takes you down your path, people come to it in different ways. But I don't feel like it's my mission. My mission is to live a good life, the best possible life, get lots of experiences, and to impact those around me. And that starts with my best self. Like to your point, if I heal, so first of all, having gone through, especially the second divorce, I was like, man, I was played. I didn't trust anybody. But like my own father, like and I was really upset at him because I was like, it's because of you that I was susceptible. And it was much easier for me to blame him, right?
Right.
So it was like, I don't trust anybody. But now I've come to the realization, like, man, that takes a lot of energy. And so I'm at a point where I trust everyone because I trust myself, and I trust that I'll see you coming a mile away. First time you show me, I see it. I don't have to act on it. I don't have to do anything. I see it, right? And I see that unhealed part in people or whatever, and I'm like, and that's my trust now, where I trust everybody implicitly, kind of like I trust dogs. There hasn't been a single dog I don't pet.
Yeah.
I'll ask the owner, oh, is he friendly? Even then, even if they say no, I'm like, no, because I have a feeling it has no reason to bite me.
Yeah, man, I love what you just said about trusting everyone because you trust yourself. Because I do trust myself, like very much so. I've been burned so many times, and by people so close to me that I'm probably more on guard the past few weeks than I've ever been in my life, as far as just not trusting people. Now, I don't think that extends to people I've met. It doesn't extend to people that I've met face to face, but I'm looking at you. You seem like super kind, genuine, kind person, but I'm not trusting you right now. And
Yeah.
you're no different than any other single person I would be talking
Yeah.
to online. It's just I just don't have any trust for anyone online right now. And,
Yeah.
but I do like what you said, about trusting everyone because I trust myself. Because right now I trust no one. So
Yeah. And that's a very lonely place to be, man.
yeah, it's something really, and my wife doesn't like it either. So it's something awesome you just gave me to think about.
Awesome. And I hope you get a chance to see the episode with Andrea.
Yeah, I will for sure.
And she's always like she'll do an introductory, like, just discovery thing, see if it even resonates if you're interested. But that's something that I highly recommend for any human being, because we live in this world of duality, and we're dealing with complex PTSD.
Yeah,
And most people don't realize this. So they think, oh, it's just, PTSD when somebody's in a firefight. A 5-minute firefight is nothing compared to like being in years of like
yeah,
fight or flight.
right.
And it just changes your subconscious in a way where, if you're not aware of it, like, you get triggered. I used to like chase down cars that like would honk on me or high beam.
Yeah,
And this was like maybe like last year.
yeah,
Now I've come to the point where I'm like, what am I doing in the left lane? I see it coming a mile away. Let me just move over. What's
yeah, right.
I have much more control over it than I realize. And in the end, what am I going to prove? That I beat up this guy and I taught him a lesson? Like, you can't teach anybody anything anyway. It's not like he's going to go, oh, yeah, I was in the wrong. He'll be like, this
Yeah,
guy beat me up and he'd probably sue me. Like, it's just, when you think about it, how ridiculous it is. So, yeah, I just find that my world is a lot easier and things come, including this interview, right? You are so busy, but I knew I wanted to meet you, and I wanted to have a very deep conversation because I do see the pain in you, and I think you're
I
here to
can't
help.
help but laugh. I just like it's a defensive laugh. I don't
I
mean
know,
to.
yeah, I
It's
know.
like
It's all good.
because like it's like my wife tells me that too, and I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine.
You're like, I use that for the longest time. I was using that emoji, with the dog drinking tea with the fire behind him. He's like, this is fine.
Yeah,
Because what do
yeah,
you do with all this knowledge, right? And even if you think about it, if you're just like, okay, cool, so that's what it is, but what does it mean? And okay, what is this like? To me, I always come back to, I'm way beyond the shape of the earth. I'm way beyond all the
yeah,
conspiracies.
right.
Okay, every fucking thing is a lie, right? And I'll swear, sorry, but like, it upsets me. And when I first saw it, I remember I used to cry because I felt like the world was so ugly and I had so much love to give and there was nothing that I could do and I wanted to save the world and this and that. And what I've come to realize is, first of all, space is fake, all that bullshit, but the universe is real, but it's all within, right? It's
Yeah,
literally the synapses in your brains. It's the marvel that is the body, and the body can do way more than people realize. You can
yeah,
literally manifest from your heart. It's a toroidal field. And if you feel it, like, things just come into your life.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's just slow Tetris pieces. So that's if anything, that's what like translucid is about. And I had this since 21. I wanted to make movies that kind of change, people are in a trance, but give them the chance to be lucid, and kind of like drop positive wisdom within. And I think some movies do that. That's where I'm still on the fence about whether they're good or bad. And I try to look past that, the
Yeah,
deception, and look at the message. Because if you look at it, acting in essence is deception. Like, they're literally acting, right?
right.
And acting is reacting. But there's a lot of positive messages. Like, I already named a few movies that like essentially changed my life. Now at the same
Yeah,
time,
no, for so many. Yeah, I have so many movies that like for sure just influenced me in a positive way because I'm like you too, and like think it's a big part of the reason why I can do a lot of what I do is because I've seen so many movies. I have the facial recognition. I can be like, oh, I used to just think they look alike, and now I'm like, oh no, they're the same person. And
yeah.
so yeah, there's definitely positive messages in that realm for sure. I
Look,
don't deny that.
if it resonates with you, I'd be down for doing movie reviews, but in a positive way, with the take that, okay, these are actors playing actors. It'd be very
Yeah,
interesting to, like, for example, look at Snatch. and rip it apart. Like, okay, so Brad Pitt is playing both Benicio del Toro and Brad Pitt in this. Why would they
Yeah.
do that? And is
Yeah.
there like the duality? Like what are they really trying to get out of it? Let's say the producers that put this together, and make a mystery out of bullshit. If that resonates with you, I'm all for it. We could watch movies and rip them apart and whatever. So yet at least have a positive spin to things. And I say rip it apart, but like, find the positive and
Yeah,
find
right. I know what you're saying.
message. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
because again, I realized that I have to come to the conclusion faster when I'm explaining things, because I do think 12 steps ahead and people just don't see it. If you don't play chess, you don't really see. So I'm like, okay, because of this is the positive. That's this, but this. So it's almost like a compliment sandwich. You start with something positive, then you have the meat, and then you have the, so it's positive, meat, and then positive. But you have more control than you realize, I don't know. But I think you're doing an amazing job, and I want to see you succeed, and I want you to not even worry about whether you're getting subscribers or not, because you're just doing the content for the sake of content, which I think you're already doing.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you're getting suppressed all the time. But it's also funny because it's like, good luck. Like, this is a guy that used to break heads to get that touchdown. It's like, I think to myself, I'm like, nothing's gonna fucking stop me if I want to get this out. Like, okay, my computer, sometimes I'm trying to do something, it breaks. I'm like, okay, I guess it just doesn't. I really got to get this out. So then I put it to my phone and I do it there, and then it's not loading, and I'm like, okay, that's another sign. It's really and
well, I've been getting, no matter when I sit down to do a post, and I'll do it in this room, doesn't matter what time of day or what day, almost every single time now I'll sit down and there's a leaf blower, like just leaf blowing, like right outside I'm like,
funny.
Like, this is a different time, a different day. It's like, I literally think it's like some sort of spiritual attack, just trying to stop me from posting, whatever it is on that day. So, but I'm like, I'm gonna get this done. I don't care what stands in the
sign. Maybe it's a sign that you have to be less perfect and just let it go, right? Like, I refuse to edit anything for that. I'm not going to spend time. Look, I don't even know what I say half the time. And I watch it again later and I'm like, oh, okay, that was an interesting point. But it's not of me when I'm really tapped into a place of source. And I think you can relate to this, right?
For sure. Absolutely.
So to me, I just want to get it out. And there's a really good book, The War of Art. I highly recommend that for you if you haven't read it yet. So it's not Art of War, it's War of Art. And it talks about getting this stuff out because it makes room for something else. And getting it out, sometimes even when you think it's crap, just get it out because it brings something else. And it taps into your creative, feminine divine. But like, that's where I think in essence, there's not, school's still out for me about whether everybody has that ability to create. I think just the act of being in this world you're creating, because every thought, every action leads to something. So technically everybody's creating at all times. You could argue, if you step away and from a more spiritual perspective, that we're all baby gods, creating literally from a place of, but we're just doing it subconsciously because we're not even aware. Most of the time we're in the past and the future, things that aren't even real. And because of that, we're on autopilot. And that's why I heard a really good saying from Theo Vaughn, that guy, I forget his name, but he talked about how intellect is like a sharp knife. And if you give it to a child, they'll grab it by the sharp end because they don't know how to hold it. So we have this thing, we don't even know how to use it. Anyway, I can go off on so many tangents. I want to bring it back on you. Do you have any like short-term goals, like 3 month, 6 month, 1 year, 5 year?
I used to be very goal oriented, and the past 2 years I haven't been. I've just been going off intuition and just like trying to live in the moment. So I don't at all. Like, as far as I wanted to move to Florida and like create a life where I could do what I want when I want all the time, and I'm doing that. A lot of the time what I want to be doing is creating content and researching and things like that. But no, I'm just kind of feeling and living in the moment as much as possible. So I have not even let myself go down the goal avenue at all. So, and it like, I'm loving that because I always had been like fitness goals, like athletic goals,
Yep.
like family goals, things like that. And like, I've just like, that has been put to the side and
And that,
like, it feels good to be honest.
I think that's so freeing, like when you're, especially when you can fast for 48 hours plus, right? Where you're like, man, like I really don't need anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm I can, a really good saying, I'm gonna butcher it, but I can think, I can wait, I can fast. And that's how I feel too about, like, I don't have any big goals. I have a couple of, like, I look at them as rocks that I throw out into a lake, and it's like I'm just gonna throw it out and that ripple is gonna come back to me. So I have a couple, but even those I'm very loosey goosey with because I realize no matter what I plan, it always comes back different. But I have to be aware to realize that I got it, everything that I actually wanted and way more if I'm aware enough. But
Yeah.
it's all,
Right.
but it's always different. You never get it the way you picture it, you know?
Yeah. And I shouldn't say, like there are things I want to do. Like I mentioned, I want to write this, do a children's book with my friend. And there's different things I want to dive into and accomplish. I want to start probably a podcast myself, but like they're not goals. They're just ideas at the moment.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you'd be really good at a podcast, man.
I had
Right?
one for, with two friends and it just, one of the friends, I think just, I, he wasn't who I thought he was, and we ended it.
Yeah.
But I'm even thinking about like doing lives and turning my lives and just like releasing them on Spotify because I don't know, I get going on my lives and just flow, and I feel like some people like I didn't think a lot of people would want to listen, and then I put one of my lives on my Facebook and it has like 300,000 views. I'm like, well, I guess
Yeah.
people just want to hear me talk, because I've got a lot of content that I can talk about, and a lot of people are interested in my content apparently. So
Yeah.
I might just start there.
You also have a unique way of talking. The way you pronounce things. It's like your tongue, you have, I don't know if it's an accent or if it's just if you, but
I have an underbite.
is that what it is?
I
But the
think so.
way
Yeah.
it's almost like you're biting on your tongue as you talk, but it gives it a really cool vibe. I don't know, and it works to your favor. So,
Cool. Cause I've always been self-conscious of it for
isn't it
like,
funny? Isn't it
yeah,
funny?
I am very, there's not many things I'm self-conscious on, but that's
Yeah,
always been one. Cause
yeah,
when I was a kid, I got made fun of for my
yeah.
underbite, and now apparently it works for me.
Right? Isn't that fun? I used to hate my name, Laszlo. I would do like the Pepsi Taste Challenge at our like local Six Flags. It's Wonderland here. And some cute girl is like, okay, what's your name? And I'd be like, Laszlo. She's like, no, what's your first name? I'd be like, oh, so I would literally lie. I'd say, my name is Mike,
Yeah.
and it's just like, 10 years old. Like,
Yeah.
so I just feel for, and the thing is, like, we actually end up being children in our lives where we still have all these insecurities, and that's why it's so easy to manipulate us and to indoctrinate us, and I just find it, I find it sad, but at the same time I'm also very hopeful, and I feel like I can't help but think that my reality is a lot more important than I gave it value for, and that as I level up, even if I got to give people space and come back, and I find that with family sometimes you just got to give space. There's a really good book, Conscious Loving. I know I'm throwing a lot of books at you, but I'll put this in the
Yeah.
thread as well
Please
for
do.
anybody. But this book talks about relationships, and I found this to be very helpful with my fiance and I, because she's also seen a lot. So she's, the best way I could explain it is I'm a dog and she's a cat, and you know, but I find that sometimes I just have to give her space, and then I come back and it's like it's either she levels up or I level up. I don't think there's anybody ever ahead, but we start to go on the same, level, because otherwise if you stay together, there's also this, and you could probably relate to this. You ever see Good Will Hunting?
Yep.
The scene where, like, how could you love me? Like, if you really knew, she's like, I want to know all. He's like, no, you don't want to
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I can relate to that. Right. And so it's like, it's one of those things where it becomes too real for you. You could just like break it, because it's like, like you said, what if I'm healed? What if I'm pain free? what if I'm okay? What if I'm in a lot more control than I realize? What if I'm literally creating this reality? What if I'm creating all, what if you're not even real and it's all me? Holy shit, that's scary. Because all of a sudden I'm responsible for every word, every thought.
Yeah, right.
So who wants that responsibility? So a lot of the times we even deny that, and that's where we have our ailments and our, like our, hey, that's just my thing, and that's just the way I am. And I don't believe in that. I just believe in, like, I am what I believe I am, and I can change that at any time. Another great movie, Vanilla Sky.
Yeah.
Every single minute that goes by, your chance to turn it all around. Whether this is reality, whether it's base reality, whether it's a matrix, just being aware of the fact that there are universal laws and what we are, and that it is a spiritual war, and we could choose good or evil at any time. To me, that's so much freedom. Because when we're done here, we have like another 19 minutes if you're still open, and we can cut this anytime you want. Again, we have free will. I have a acupuncture session, and I'm gonna meet my fiance, go for a nice dinner. I let her pick whatever, and I even told her today, like, she's got a winning lotto ticket, because as she's buying it, like, some dude sneezed 6 times. What I told you, and I'm like, when she picked the last number, I'm like, I don't know if it's gonna win $5 or 5,000, but that's a winner.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that. I'll let you know after. But, like, I'm a strong believer that we are in way more control. So in terms of the positive, that's my reality. And I want to talk to you about your thoughts on the realm we're in. And you wear the ice wall hat. So do you think that that's it? I know your feelings about, like, deceiving about extraterrestrials. I think they're just demons, and
Yeah.
they're just pretending, and they want us to fear it. But do you think there's land beyond the firmament? Does the firmament enclose the ice wall? And do you think there is something, or is it layers? Kind of like Darius J. Wright talks about 12 heavens. This is heaven one.
Yeah. My view has changed on it, and that's because I am open and I don't think I know. But, when I first woke up to not living on a globe, I thought it was us here in an enclosed system, and then outside of here, whether there were multiple layers to the firmament or not. I thought we were here. This was the 3D realm, the physical realm, and then outside of here was the spirit world. I Since then, and in the amount of the amount of giant creatures and beings and dragons that I have found that are literally hundreds of miles
Yeah,
long, I have started to really think that we are in a tiny little bubble in an enclosed system, and that there is a much, like, we're an anthill amongst a much larger realm. I don't necessarily know if I think there's other realms where there's, like, people our size, or if we're just it and there's a bigger realm outside of here. Because I think every single thing we walk on was once a living creature. And I'm a big believer in the Bible, but there's nothing that in the Bible says that, like, that could just be the story and the creation of our bubble. And there could be a
yeah,
whole lot more outside of there that has been in existence for a lot longer. So I do think we're in an enclosed system. I do think there are layers to the firmament, because I have seen evidence of that when I've seen, layers of it with the eclipse, where I could literally see, like, the sun shining through the different layers. So I
hmm
do think we're in an enclosed system, think there's layers, and I think there's maybe giant size creatures and beings outside of here still. And I think, maybe, I do think there was a flood that killed a lot of them off, but that doesn't mean they don't still exist outside of here. So, but again, that's speculation. And I do think there are people that push certain narratives intentionally. And I think there's one thing to speculate about different lands and things like that. There's another thing to push them. And that's kind of where my
got it.
negative thoughts have come in from people that do that. But, like, also those people that I think are doing that also have a lot of other red flags. It wasn't just that one
Yep.
thing that made me think that they were deceptive.
Yeah, and again, I've been there. And there's another really good book called from Dr. Ramani, Should I Stay or Should I Go? She's particularly good at picking up red flags, and she lists off about 30 of them. And it's funny enough because if you look at this and you really, really earnestly do it a few times for yourself, you realize too, like I have like a lot of red flags.
Yeah.
And and again, it's like, but you know, I've come to fully love myself with those red flags because I'm aware of them and I'm aware where they came from, and I'm actively doing. It's a lifetime process, constantly.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing: if I was to ask you as a man to rank yourself out of 10, 10 being perfect, down to the decimal place, how would you rank yourself?
See, I tend to go the opposite way. I don't think I'm a narcissist, but my whole life I have felt like I've always been an honest person. You
Yep.
know, like I was never a woman chaser. I've never done drugs. Like I genuinely feel like I'm a good, kind, honest person. So I would rate myself high, where I feel like most men I know wouldn't. But it's
What? Why do you need to explain it even?
Well, because I do have a phobia of appearing
But again,
not humble.
but this is what I'm saying. That's
Right.
external of you. How do you really feel if it's just two dudes talking right now? And I'll start. I'll tell you, I'm a 12
Okay, well,
out of
good.
10. That's literally how I feel about myself, narcissistic or not. I'm like, because I was like way down,
Okay,
growing
I
up,
got you.
and I've especially I was probably like a 6.2 when I met my fiance, and I told her, "You're getting me at my worst.
Yeah,
I'm dealing with this, blah blah blah." So it took me a long time to get to the point where it's accepted everything. So I'm
yeah,
not afraid to say that. I don't care if people can say, "Oh, he's full of himself." I don't care. I don't
yeah,
think I'm handsome. I don't think anything. This is what I was given, and this is what I'm working with.
yeah. So are you waiting for a number ranking?
I'm waiting for your number. Down to mine is 12.0 and rising.
I'm a 9.9 because I don't think anyone's perfect.
All right, perfect. But and I agree. I agree with that. I think Jesus, I don't even think Jesus was perfect. Personally, I
Yeah,
think I think he messed up. I think he, like, but again, who am I to say to that? But I think Jesus was trying to show us that we all have that Christ consciousness within us. But I think I would do myself a disservice if I do not believe in my abilities, even though I will fail. Like if I go shoot, in basketball, I'm gonna miss half my shots. At best, I'll hit 60, 70% if I'm really hot, even
yeah,
though I try to make every single shot. But I'd rather have that mentality that I'm in a position to make every shot.
yeah. Before we get too far away from it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the realm. Where do you think we are?
Right now, at this point, like I definitely I believe in the ice wall. I do.
Yeah,
Just today, I saw a video from Globe Stupid on Twitter. And it's interesting because I always thought of it as, oh, we're in a contained system, right? And there's, some people found passages, and there's probably lands way more advanced than us. Then I saw your stuff. I'm thinking, okay, there's areas with dragons, people went traded chocolate. Like it's interesting, right? The Game of Thrones feel. But then I'm thinking, okay, so as much as we're being contained, maybe we're being protected. Because this video I saw was, okay, there's an outer land, if you think about it, and you talked about it too, like our realm here, and then there's a much bigger one, the reflection on the moon, if you look at that map, and then how it moves around. I guess
right.
in 21,060 years or something. There may be life in other areas that don't have our sun, or I don't even know what the sun is really. I think it's personal. So are we being protected from something, right? Because you don't know. Maybe all countries agreed because they're literally like, hey, we need to have military around the ice wall to protect what's inside. Then there's the deception and all the BS, and why are they lying to us? Because I can't think of any good reason. I really can't. But this is something that, like, I kind of, like Jordan Peterson, I used to think it was funny how he would ponder a question for like 3 months. Now I'm very comfortable doing that. We're like, I don't know,
Oh, yeah, sure.
I've become a philosopher where I'm just one of those, where thinking about stuff, and I think it drives people nuts because like care about I don't care about gas prices. Like if whatever, I gotta get gas.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Groceries. I'm
Same
like,
way.
my dad used to go to Costco to get cheap gas. I'm like, like that's my time. No, I don't want to think about it. And I'm
I'm
the
the same.
same about money too. Funny enough, I'm not rich, but I don't care about money. To me, there's the difference between money and currency. And I did an episode on it with a friend who like is an expert at this, 30 plus years. I think money is nothing more than energy. Currency itself is a current, and you just got to know where to stand. And there's free energy if you are worthy to stand in the right spot. You have to be aware. So, my best kind of, I really like what Darius J. Wright says. It resonates with me. He's a cool dude. I'm going to try to get an interview with him because I just like his, like, I get along really well with Christians, people on the spectrum, or people that are kind of crazy because to me, all of them are very like focused in.
Right.
And I think if you can have a soul to soul conversation with somebody very easily if you make eye contact. And a lot of people don't even look you in the eye when they talk. But the ones that do, it's very quick. You can see somebody's soul, or you can, at least tap into it.
That dude's really on the scene lately. And I love what he says 99% of the time. And then there's another part of me that I'm not kidding. I think he might be Andrew Tate.
I can honestly tell you he's not Andrew Tate. And I consider myself a pretty good judge of character. I think Andrew Tate is a piece of shit. I think he's cipher. I think he says all the right things, but it's very.
Like, wouldn't that be the perfect duality if he's Andrew Tate and now he's? I mean, I've done some.
You're doing the comparisons. Get out of here.
Like, done some facial symmetry stuff, and the dude is. I mean. Don't
ruin Darius for me. Just let me learn a little more.
I love what he says, and that doesn't mean he's not speaking full truth too. But maybe I don't know, man. I've been looking into him and Andrew Tate. I'm just saying.
All right. So here's another theory.
I'd love to hear what else you were saying about him, though, because I do like him.
About Tate?
No, about Darius.
Okay. So I'll talk about Tate first. I like his take on toxic masculinity, but I honestly think he's cipher like in the Matrix because of his lifestyle. It doesn't resonate with me, the fast cars, all that. Him and his brother. I like what he says about doing, keep it within the family. Who do you know better than your brother? But to me, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And the stuff they were doing in Romania, I don't know him, but to me, it's like, would I hang out with this guy? No. Would I let him watch my dog? No, I wouldn't. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I don't think he's teaching men the right thing. He's teaching men how to control women and how to have a subservient woman that, to me, look, the Bible may have a certain thing as well. I do believe the man is the head and the woman is the neck, and you work in unison, and you need both. But I do not believe in, I just think it's narcissistic controlling men. Darius, on the other hand, I don't know, that dude just it's next level, the stuff that he says that really resonates with me, and especially how he talks about the only way through the firmament is for the soul, and when you're on the other side, it's like when you come across other beings that he has, no being has dominion over another. Like they're not like, oh, you're from Earth. Like if anything,
he says, every single thing he says, he resonates. And like the most recent book I've read was something about like the soul. I can't even think of the title. You were so good at titles. And I'm reading one book the past few months. It's like the soul's journey, something like that. But it's basically this doctor that can hypnotize people, and he talks to them. They remember their past lives, but also their memories in between lives when they're in the spirit world. It's a great book, but it's aligned so much with a lot of what Darius says, and like everything he says resonates with me. So I just want to believe everything he says. What's that?
Is it the untethered soul?
I'll look at it. I've got it right here.
I have a thing where anytime somebody recommends a book, I just buy it right away, and it's on my queue, and I do Audible so I can stack my time.
Journey of Souls by Michael Newton.
Amazing. I'm gonna add that to my list right now.
It's good stuff.
And I'll add it in the link here for everybody as well.
Now I don't feel like such an illiterate with you naming
Oh,
off 10
oh,
books.
come on, man. No, not at all. And I really hope you get past that. Because honestly, dude, like, so here's the thing. This is what Andrea pointed out to me. That there are certain people that come here. If you believe in the soul contract, everything that happens to you, including all the horrible things, you've already agreed to before you came in.
I agree. Fully agree with that.
So some came here, and it's like it's their job to wake up and to wake others up. And she genuinely believes, I don't know how much of this I want to choose it carefully. She genuinely believes that, you know, she has a path, and she's told me, she's like, I think you may too. And nobody can tell you, it's just you know yourself. But I definitely think you do, and I definitely think like you could be an angel that's like awakening. Now you could be a dark angel and you don't even know, and you're being deceived. So that's why I'm saying be careful, right?
Yeah. I since the moment I can remember, I feel like I was like, there's something I was supposed to be doing here that I'm not doing. Like I've had that feeling my whole life. And part of me thought it was like, my dad's a narcissist and like he was a big time athlete. And I thought part of that was like, oh, that's my dad and me thinking I was meant for like to be an NFL player, like something special. But like now that I've gotten in touch with it, I'm like, that's not it. There's something, it's like from the realm, the spirit realm, that like was on a mission.
Yeah, and I think this is a very difficult thing, because it's like, oh, like oh, so you think you know, and this and that, and it's, I remember it wasn't until I had like my first positive, not positive, but I always had like relationships where I was just kind of helping somebody because they were, and I explored this in episode 5 with Run Boston Bear, because he had a very similar JT. He had a very similar background, and I think you probably know him. And he, what am I talking about?
JT follows JC you had on?
Yeah, Run Boston Bear. And he, so he, what were we talking about before with the
soul contracts, and Andrea talking about our path?
And then you're awakened to your path. The world will knock you down, and it'll keep knocking you down. For him in high school, it was very tough, and university in itself, and he felt like he had to be a chameleon. And I can really, that resonates with me, because a lot of the times I wasn't being my true self, and to the point too where, like, because of the stuff that I dealt with, I just kind of I went inwards. I cut off all friends. I cut off, and I'm like, you know, and it was very difficult for me to even get these episodes out. And I just started as of September. I'm like, well, fuck it. Like, it needs to come out, and I just want to have conversations. I don't know where it's going. But ever since I did, things are opening up a lot more for me. And I realize that I'm just like, when you don't have fear in what you're speaking, I'm not saying just run your mouth like a narcissist and tell people, well, that's just the truth. And because that's bullshit. No, you got to lead with kindness. But if it comes from my heart, and I know that it's something positive, I say it. I don't hold back. And I get in trouble sometimes because I'll chat up random people. Like, I'll chat up the dude that has a nice tattoo, but I'll also chat up the waitress and give her a compliment. And it's like, well, some people might take that the wrong way, and I get that. But like, it is what it is. I'm gonna, if I have something positive to say, Mark Twain. I just did it again. Now I'm being conscious. Mark Twain has a saying that I could live off a compliment for 2 months. So if I have the ability to compliment somebody and make them feel good, why would I not do that? There's goodwill in that, and that spreads. If I compliment that person, they're going to have a slightly better day. They compliment somebody else. Like, it's like a ripple effect. So that's where I think what you're doing is amazing. And I just want to make sure that, you know, like, you're going to be favored by the devil. I'm telling you straight up.
Because, well, let me return the favor, because I've fully enjoyed, like, I've never had 3 hours go so fast. And I don't think I've honestly ever gotten as in depth. And that was part of the reason I wanted, you know, I said yes to you. I've been saying no. And, you know, just the way you presented what our conversation would be, you were full on accurate. And you have an awesome way to just have things flow. And, you know, like, I'm so much like you. Like, I hate answering a phone call because I don't like small talk. So
Yeah.
I just appreciated getting real with you and having a great conversation. So you're doing amazing work yourself, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to be respectful of your time. It's 2 o'clock my time here. So we can end it here. I just want you to plug your stuff so people can find you. I'm going to put it in if they don't know already, but
Sure. Yeah. Honestly, I would appreciate if people, whatever platform is your preference, people listening, go to find me there. I'm either Fittest Flat Earther or the Fittest Flat Earther. But my preference is check me out on either YouTube, but most importantly, Facebook. They're not censoring me as much. I have a great subscription there, and I only plug that because there's an awesome subscriber chat, and there's also an awesome subscriber group where people can post, and you're posting in front of 1,000 people instead of if you're someone looking to post, and it's all people with open minds and like-minded, and there's not trolls. So that's the only reason I really wanted to plug Facebook more than anything.
yeah, and all I can say is like it's way better than a Netflix subscription. Whatever you're subscribing to, just cut one of those off. I think it's like $3, $2 a month.
Yeah.
But it's look, it even if you just treat it as entertainment, like and there's get comfortable in not knowing. Tyler's a good dude, and yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing, man. And I will reach out, on the other stuff to kind of help nudge you in the right direction, if you even need it for like children's books and other things. I think you got a lot that needs to come out. I think definitely bring back the podcast, even if you do it alone and you just interview people. Like, I think people will be drawn to you, and I think people will be cautious as well in terms of like, you'll have the right people because they know that you have the eyes to see through their bullshit if they're not coming straight. And yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, man. I'll send you this as well. You can do with it whatever you want. You can cut it up however you like. And yeah, I just want people to better themselves. That's it.
Yeah, that's all I'm here for too. And my ultimate goal is just helping people find the truth that I didn't know for 42 years, that we're not living on a ball and we live in a spiritual realm, and we are much more than most of us know. And also there is God that actually exists. That created all of us.
When you talk about like what does it mean to me, because I still got to go to work, it gives you peace of mind. It gives you freedom because you realize you have completely free will, and it brings you closer to your creator, whether that's God, Allah, creator, spirit, universe, source. Being able to tap into that, I think, is priceless. So yeah, I think what you do is priceless. Thank you again, and I'll be in touch, man. Keep doing you, and yeah, I hope this resonated with you. I had a great time. This just flew by this time.
Yeah, I did too, my friend. And I appreciate you spending 3 hours with me as well.
Maybe we'll talk to Darius together.
That'd be fun. Honestly, I would love to talk to him. If you ever line him up, I would love to be involved.
Yeah, awesome. I'll use you as like my Trojan horse. Like, this guy's big. I'm a nobody, but like, let's talk.
He's probably never heard of me, but that's all right.
All right. Thanks, man.
Peace, brother.
Have a good one. Bye.